We have, the regular meeting has it on there.
All right, good evening, everybody. This is a special meeting of the City Council of the City of Cape May, New Jersey. We are here in the Cape May City Hall Auditorium. Today is Tuesday, August 16th, 2022. The time is 5 o'clock. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Under the Open Public Meetings Law, notice of this meeting was sent to the Cape May County Herald and the Press of Atlantic City, and a copy of the agenda was delivered to each member of City Council and posted on the Cape May City website and Cape May City Hall Bulletin Board. Notice is hereby provided that Cape May City Council meetings are audio recorded and video streamed live. Live video streams are posted to the Cape May City website. The City of Cape May is not responsible if audio recording or live video streaming of a meeting is unavailable. Roll call. Councilmember Baldwin?
Here.
Councilmember Meyer?
Here.
Mayor Mullock?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Sheehan?
Here.
Councilmember Yeager?
Here.
City Solicitor Gillen Schwartz?
Here.
City Manager Vol is absent, and Deputy City Clerk Dillon.
Here.
And Council, we have any additions or deletions to the special meeting agenda?
We might, Mr.
I
Mark.
would like to add to the closed session a discussion of the Franklin Street School contract with the county.
I guess my question was to Mr. Gillen Schwartz, can we add that even though it wasn't advertised?
I don't see a problem with it for two reasons. I think the award is time-sensitive, and perhaps ironing out some details related to that time-sensitive nature makes sense. Number two, that resolution is considered on our current agenda for the regular meeting. So I think there's two bases to go into closed session if council wants to.
Okay.
That was in the motion if I didn't say that.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Councilmember Baldwin?
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sheehan?
Yes.
Councilmember Yeager?
Yes.
Mayor Mullock?
Yes.
And then, Council, we have Resolution 211-08-2022, a resolution providing for a meeting not open to the public in accordance with the provisions of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-12. This is to update on the COA Trust Fund matter, update on Interwise litigation, and now discussion on the Franklin Street School potential award of contract.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Baldwin?
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sheehan?
Yes.
Councilmember Yeager?
Yes.
Mayor Mullock?
Yes.
Mayor, would you like to open it to the public at this point?
Yes. Anyone wishing to speak from the public? Seeing none, we'll close public comment.
All right. Time into closed session is 5:04.
Thank you.
Testing, testing.
All right, good evening, everyone. We are actually just coming out of a special session. Mr. Solicitor, do you want to give us a quick update on the closed session?
Yeah, council discussed 3 items. We discussed an update on the COA trust fund matter. We anticipate taking formal action during our regular session. Update on the Inderweiss litigation, and an added item, which was discussion of the Franklin Street School contract award. And we anticipate taking formal action also on the Franklin Street construction discussion.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to close that special session?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second. The time is 6:04. Mayor, if you'd like to call the regular meeting to order.
All right, good evening, everybody. Today is our regular meeting in City Council, City of Cape May, New Jersey. We are here in the Cape May City Hall Auditorium with a very large crowd. And today is Tuesday, August 16th, 2022. The time is now 6:02. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Under the Open Public Meetings Law, notice of this meeting was sent to the Cape May County Herald and the Press of Atlantic City, and a copy of the agenda was delivered to each member of City Council and posted on the Cape May City website and Cape May City Hall Bulletin Board. Notice is hereby provided that Cape May City Council meetings are audio recorded and video streamed live. Live video streams are posted to the Cape May City website. The City of Cape May is not responsible if audio recording or live video streaming of a meeting is unavailable. Roll call. Councilmember Baldwin?
Here.
Councilmember Meyer?
Here.
Mayor Mullock?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Sheehan?
Here.
Councilmember Yeager?
Here.
City Solicitor Gillenschwartz?
Here.
City Manager Vall is absent. We have Deputy City Manager Blasio
Here.
and Deputy City Clerk Dillon.
Here.
And I believe we have a few additions and possibly a tabling this evening, Mayor, if you'd like me to list those for you.
Please.
Okay. So the one addition that Mr. Gillenschwartz already referred to is going to be Resolution 219-08-2022. This is a resolution authorizing voluntary deduction of employee earned paid time off in lieu of monetary payment to resolve overpayment of wages in 2020 in connection with the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, COA. If there's a motion to add that to the agenda.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Roll call?
Councilmember Baldwin?
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sheehan?
Yes.
Councilmember Yeager?
Yes.
Mayor Mullock?
Yes.
And I believe there may be a motion to table the introduction of Ordinance 474-2022, if you'd like to discuss that at this point or wait till we get to that in the agenda.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Want to make an explanation?
There's apparently needed some misunderstanding and some more discussion was requested by a representative of the Environmental Commission. So we'll be back at a later time.
It's like an invasive species that keeps coming back. Yeah. Okay. No, that's no problem. Motion and a second to it. Roll call?
So the motion is to table indefinitely. So we have Councilmember Baldwin,
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sheehan,
Yes.
Councilmember Yeager,
Yes.
Mayor Mullock.
Yes.
Okay. Any other additions or deletions tonight, Council?
No, I believe that's it. And with that, we don't often get to see such a large group of our heroes here in the city of Cape May, except in their times where they're doing their job. But before we start, I just want to recognize all of you and thank you very much. You've had a difficult summer, difficult time through through COVID, which obviously is still going on, but you all have done just a wonderful, wonderful job. So my congratulations and thank you to all of you. With that, I'd like to introduce Chief Alex Coulter. Chief, take it away.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you all for coming. I'm very happy to have kind of got everybody together here on kind of short notice here, but I was very excited that Mr. and Mrs. Marr and Sebastian Marr were able to join us today because we're here today because of the day on June 28th with Sebastian at 503 Washington Street, which the personnel we're going to honor here tonight contributed in saving this young boy's life. I would like Mr. Marr or Mrs. Marr to come up and speak for a moment, if you would, before we get to handing out the awards here. It's on, you're good. I got a mic too? You got a mic?
Oh, this is terrible. Unprepared, but this is really from the bottom of my heart for all you gentlemen. I recognize some of you, particularly the gentleman with the buzz cut at the corner. He was one. But who really saved our son's life in the longest 15 minutes of my life, watching him choke on a very ill-advised gumball that I participated in allowing at the Five and Dime store, and it was a cast of thousands in a matter of moments. And this was, again, honestly, the first time in my life I ever happily also needed that level of support, but it was there, and it was there in spades. So I, again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you guys for saving his life.
Chief Vashall, Chief Napoli, if you could join me up here, please. Oh, you're coming up, Steve. You're not getting out of this one. Chief Vashall, if you could join us also. So, no, not you. Kyle, come here for 1 second, buddy. I need you to hand me this. So there's a sequence of events that day, and we're going to kind of start at the beginning. As the call was received, Officer Gibson was in the vicinity, as per Sergeant Christinger, on a different project, and happened to have the most perfect timing to begin assisting aid to young Sebastian in his time of need. And on behalf of the Cape May City Fire Department, I would like to thank you for everything that you've done. I know on behalf of the family, they're more than happy, and I would like you to come forward and accept your life-saving award, Colt. Officer Colt Gibson.
I didn't make a speech. I wasn't expecting what took place to happen. I'm all mixed up here. It was scary. I'll tell you guys that. I was going out looking for bike helmets, thanks to Sergeant Christinger, looking for positive helmet ticket violations, and I come around the corner and it just went to 100 real fast. But we're not. I work with a good group of guys, and we weren't going to let that turn into a bad day. So Sebastian's here. There you Like I said, I work with a good group of guys between fire, our guys. What you guys didn't see is the stuff that, us blocking the roads off, getting the ambulance out of town. It was a long half an hour. I think that's what it was, equals, right? Half an hour, 30 minutes. Like I said, we did what we needed to do, and Sebastian's still here. Amen. So.
Thank you, Officer Gibson. The next group, I'm going to bring everybody up at once here. The 4 personnel from the City of Cape May Fire Department. We responded in 2 ambulances to that call. Myself and the Deputy Chief also came up. As the call escalated, we wanted to make sure that the level of care was there. Everybody involved worked very diligently. And just for the record, everybody who's going to come up here and get a plaque will have to say something. I'm not going to leave it on poor Colt's shoulders to have the only thing to say. The one thing I would like to do, and I didn't do this before yours, and I apologize, is I'm going to read what's on the plaques. Everybody's plaque reads the same. Hand me that first one. So on the plaques, it reads, Life-Saving Award presented to the person I'm presenting to. In recognition of your courageous and life-saving actions on June 28th of 2022 at 503 Washington Street in Cape May, the actions taken by you saved the life of an adolescent choking victim. Your courage and professionalism at this time of need exemplifies your dedication to duty and your community on behalf of the Cape May Fire Department. So with that being said, firefighter EMT David Jackson, can you come forward?
Thank you guys very much. Not expected to say anything.
It was a real group effort. Everyone did their job, and we had the best outcome, and Sebastian's proof of it. So thank you guys, everyone who helped out, and it was a great day.
You can stay you can stay over here. Cole, we're going to bring it back up here, if you don't mind. Firefighter EMT Jackson Pyle.
As Colt and Dave had said, best outcome possible for Sebastian over there. And as Colt said, it was probably the longest half hour we've had this summer. So, but we're thankful for a positive outcome at the end of everything. So.
Firefighter EMT Joshua Vandermark.
Yeah, like everybody said, it was just definitely a group effort. When it comes down to it, it's difficult when it comes down to a young child, but we all put it together and we worked our best, and he's over there smiling today, so that's the biggest award we could all have. So.
Firefighter EMT Kyle Quirk.
Well, I'm going to do this again, but I think out of all of it, Sebastian is a super tough kid. He's really resilient, and he was awesome. And he's just a really, really tough kid, and thankful for everybody. You know, we had a good coordination between everybody, and everything worked out and flowed pretty well. And that's all I really have to say about that.
And the next group, our Advanced Life Support Unit, makes our lives a lot easier because we depend on them heavily in times of need for advanced life support calls. And on behalf of the Cape May Fire Department and the family, I would like to present these awards to the two paramedics that day from Atlantic Care, who were the ones who eventually cleared the obstruction from the throat, and we're here today. So paramedic Brian Allegretto.
Everybody else, but you're the man.
Thank you. I'm just glad to be there. You made it. Thanks, Steve. I'll just say something real quick. As paramedics, we travel throughout the county. We're not assigned to a specific municipality. We cover all of Cape May County, Atlantic County. I've worked in Salem County, Cumberland County. And this is the first time I've ever received an award for, I'll say, doing my job. I love what I do. I come to work every day. I never dread coming into work, and Sebastian is one of the reasons why. When I get to make a difference, it just, you can't describe the words. And to receive this, it's the highlight of my career. And I'll tell you what, of all the EMS and fire departments that I work with throughout all those counties, Cape May is second to none, I have to tell you. Like, they're a good bunch of guys, good hearts, and I consider them all friends. Thank you.
And last but certainly not least, somebody who I've known my entire career along with Brian, paramedic Thomas T.J. Balt.
Yes, sir. My partner in crime. Not crime, but you know.
Sitting right alongside me. You were a true champ there today, that day also.
The team, but you guys,
you were part of the team too, and it all worked out
but you guys
very
were the
well.
important part.
And hey, Sebastian, you were the champ of the day. So it was just, it was great to be a part of this great team that just pulled it all together, and when the chips were down, and made some lemonade out of the lemons. So happy to be a part of everything. Thanks again.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you very much. And I'd just like to say, again, thank all of you for a great summer, a lot of hard work, and on behalf of the City Council and the citizens of Cape May, this is just a little window into what you guys do on a daily basis. And I have to say, from my experience working with you, I think somebody said that it was the best team that they've worked with. I don't know if he knows we're on live stream this evening and every community can hear that, but I have to say I totally agree, and you guys do a wonderful job. So thank you very much.
Once again, I want to thank everybody. I definitely want to get some pictures here. City Clerk Aaron Burke is up here, but before we do the pictures and everything, I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, it's very comforting to know where I work and who I work with and who I work around. And I'm the conductor of the orchestra. The orchestra makes the music, and these guys are amazing. And I cannot thank them enough and thank the city enough for its support and everything else. But one more time, these guys deserve a round of applause.
But the conductor takes the bow.
Chief, everybody, we're going to do one more proclamation this evening. I think it actually is a little bit of a coincidence based on who's in the room tonight, but we also have someone here that has strong connections to the city of Cape May and to the lifeguards in our beach patrol. And if I could, this is a proclamation recognizing, why don't you join me, Robert? Come on up. Robert Cobb Sullivan for his efforts in updating the Cape May Beach Patrol website. So thank you very much. And I'll read the proclamation as follows. Whereas Cape May City resident Robert Cobb Sullivan has been employed by Steger Beach Service for 6 years and has been a part-time IT manager for Cape May Contracting. And whereas Mr. Sullivan is currently a student at Temple University School of Technology and holds a Bachelor's of Science degree in Information Systems and Technology. And whereas Mr. Sullivan has intimate ties to the Cape May City Beach Patrol, as his sister and cousin are both members of the patrol. And whereas Mr. Sullivan was instrumental in creating the new Cape May Beach Patrol website, which is, do you want to say it?
It's Cape May, it's the CapeMayBeachPatrol.org.
CapeMayBeachPatrol.org, and updating the system, Google rankings, domain names, and beach safety information, as well as training the current Cape May Beach Patrol employees on how to operate the new site. And now, therefore, I, Zachary Moloch, Mayor of the City of Cape May, hereby recognize Mr. Sullivan for volunteering his invaluable time, apparently over some 200 hours, so it's really appreciated by the City of Cape May, and thank him for his service to the city and our community. Thank you very much, Robert Cove Sullivan.
Yeah, more than anything, I would really like to thank the Beach Safety Committee for this opportunity here. I really did enjoy creating the website. I had a lot of fun reaching out to my friends for pictures, among all the other things. And I'm friends with way too many of the lifeguards at this point, so it has been just great working with all of them. And overall, thank you guys. It's been fun.
Thank you. There you go. Thanks a lot. With that, we'll excuse anybody who's not here for the rest of the fun this evening. Thank you very much. Yeah, let's do that. Okay. Let's give it a second here. Yeah, exactly. Okay. Couple stragglers still here. All right, next on the agenda, we have an update from City Manager. And I do want to wish who's under the weather this evening, but welcome Deputy City Manager Lieu Blasio. Do you have an update for us this evening?
No, not this evening.
Okay. And City Solicitor?
Mayor, I just wanted to address council and the public in relation to the liquor license transfer discussion at the last meeting, and I guess I'll give that door a second. Thank you. You'll recall that at the last meeting, we considered issuance of a liquor license.
We can open them later if it gets hot, but.
And council considered the application, considered objectors, and due to the makeup of council at that meeting, it was a 2-to-1 vote with an abstention. Now, normally, under Title 40 and the city code, an affirmative majority of 3 votes of a 5-member council would be required for taking any sort of action. That's been my understanding with this council on nearly everything that you do. I think that's reflected in the statute, it's reflected in the city code. I didn't see a reason why you would treat that any different at the time. Following the meeting, I was presented with a appellate division case from 1951. The appellate division, there's 3 tiers of court in the state of New Jersey, much like our federal system: trial level, appellate division, New Jersey Supreme Court. So this is one rung below the Supreme Court in New Jersey. And that case has actually been referenced in subsequent cases, 1984, for instance, referencing that case. That usually means it's good law. And that case stands for the proposition that essentially, in layman's terms, it doesn't matter what it says in the statute or in Title 40, when you're acting on a liquor license application, you're not acting under Title 40 or as a municipality, you're acting as an issuing authority for the ABC, which is under a separate section of the statutes. I mean, I can think of some arguments as to why that wouldn't be the case or the reasoning behind that, but much like Supreme Court decisions, you can argue about the reasons. It doesn't change the law. So that case law is out there, and I reviewed the case myself, came to my own conclusions about that, but in an effort to be comprehensive and address the issue from a 360-degree view, I reached out to the ABC. The ABC would have the jurisdiction to review or any appeal of council's action. Now, the response is not to review that on a summary basis or issue a decision, but what I was able to glean from my discussions with the attorneys who advise the ABC is that they have consistently, over years, cited to that 1951 case in their decision-making about the way that votes are interpreted. On that basis, there's really no counter-argument at that point, and there's really no basis to view that vote any differently than passage. And again, you can go back and forth on the reasonings behind that, but I think the law on that is pretty clear at this point. It was clear to me on Friday, and I reached out to a number of council members to confirm that before I sent the letter out to both the applicant and the objectors to make sure that everybody had seen that. So I understand that there was a little bit of perhaps some whiplash on that discussion, but I think it was the right call ultimately, and council, again, passed it with conditions, retains control over that on an annual basis. So I just wanted to explain that to council and perhaps some members of the public who are kind of wondering what happened. And I'll point out that I don't think it made a lot of sense to sit on this till today. If we knew what the case was, we knew what council did. The meaning of that was pretty clear in my perspective from the case law and the interpretation of that issue by the ABC. There's really no reason to kind of sit on that. So that was, just wanted to provide that explanation.
Mr. Gillen-Schwartz, I have a quick question. Is there anything that council has to do to solidify that decision at the table today?
No, not in my opinion. And the reason for that is because council already took action as policymakers. You voted. The question was just what does that vote mean? And I think we know what the meaning of that is at this point.
Can we just make sure that gets into the minutes, what he just explained?
Thank you. Okay. Looks like we're on to discussion. Proposed invasive species ordinance. I understand that's been removed from the agenda, or not removed, tabled.
No, not that one. We removed the inclusion of
The ordinance for the non-voting member and the Environmental Commission was tabled.
Oh, okay. Pardon me. Pardon me. Okay. So, okay. Thank you. So let's open up. No. Let's open it up for discussion for the proposed invasive species ordinance.
So if I could, I'll start off with this. I am, for most people that probably don't know, I'm the council liaison to the Environmental Commission. And the commission, while it's focused on a number of things, it's one of its main tasks for this year is that it really wants to pass an invasive species ordinance. I believe that City Council has seen, I know of at least one before, maybe more, invasive species ordinance, and it hasn't gotten past council. I'm not sure if it got past discussion. So I told the commission that I think that, if I'm going to come back to council, I'd like to come back with an ordinance that is, something that we can all live with. So I think this ordinance that is being proposed is livable. I got to say that, one of the first things is that many municipalities up and down the New Jersey coast, in all New Jersey, do have invasive species ordinances on the books, and that I think that the problem in the past, if I understand correctly, it's been an enforcement issue more than anything. And I know that some people are sensitive to being told what they can or cannot plant, but there's definitely environmental and health reasons, as well as neighborly reasons why we would have such an ordinance. So, working with our solicitor, I think he put together a real nice ordinance here, and I just wanted to hit some of the highlights. And I think it's a lot less publicly invasive than it has been in the past, but I still think the outcome will have positive benefits for the city of Cape May. So one of the first thing is, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to prohibit the new plantings of invasive species, and we also, the thing we're trying to accomplish is a better protective native species and surrounding property owners. So the crux of this whole amendment, ordinance is, first of all, controlling existing growth. So we're basically saying that failure of an individual to not control the spread of vegetation beyond the boundaries of a property is a violation of the chapter. This is not demanding that people even remove an invasive species from their yard if they have it. All we're saying is that we need you to control it. If you want to have it in your yard, then you need to make sure it stays in your yard. We're also, not having a massive list of invasive species. I think some are certainly more concerned than others, but we're proposing that we have a city's list of invasive and nuisance species as recommended by the Environmental Commission, and we think should be approved by the Planning Board. So
I think that the list, which I had asked the city clerk for the list, and there wasn't one. I think the list has to spell out exactly what plants we're talking about. Only because if you say it's whatever's on the New Jersey Forestry Association, that to me is too vague. I think it should be spelled out exactly what plants we're talking about.
yes. And I think that
include it in the ordinance.
It says it in the definitions here.
No, but it says,
Have a few examples.
Just
it's to include, but I believe those named in this ordinance are a good start. I think they would be on the list, but the intent would be that, certainly we can have a list attached to this ordinance that says exactly what it is. And I believe that the Environmental Commission may want to add to the list as time goes on, as people understand things differently, and we can propose amendments later on.
And there was when I was on the Environmental Commission, there was a Dirty Dozen list, which gave 12 invasive species that was part of what I brought to council at that point. So there is a list out there.
well, I know the other list included, the butterfly bush and things like that. Now, I don't know what the Latin name is. Is that one of these?
I'm not familiar with the butterfly bush and what the Latin name is.
I guess.
Sure, but I think that to get to it, it doesn't have to be a massive list. I think, again, the Environmental Commission can provide a list that belongs with this ordinance.
Right. I would like to
And
see
we'll
it
be
start off small, and then we can add to it as,
Yes, I'm sure. I mean, it's actually what was named at the beginning here is more than likely going to be on the short list. And
Yeah.
in the definition of invasive plants, it's going to be there. I mean, I can tell you right now that the bamboo and English ivy are major problems in the city. I believe that once we introduce this ordinance, you are going to have people coming and, testifying to the issues that they've run into with things like bamboo and English ivy. Very expensive issues.
Yeah. Yeah.
Invasion, they didn't plant them, they're being invaded by them.
Yeah.
And, so negative things like that need to be fixed. The other thing that was a problem was we had, people inspecting code enforcement, being responsible for basically identifying people that have these problems in their yards. And the way this is written, which I think is perfect, is that an inspection can only be made after a property owner, an adjoining property owner has a problem with the neighbor's invasive plant coming into their yard.
Well, I think we already had something on the books, don't we, that people right now can still go file a complaint for invasive species on their yard. Isn't that correct?
I'm sorry, can you say that again, Deputy Mayor?
Isn't there already something on the books that people can file a complaint as of now there's an invasive species or overgrowth, I guess, coming onto their yard?
I don't know off the
I
top of
thought
my
we
head.
had something with the bamboo, because that was a whole thing with Jefferson Street.
Certainly, I don't know if we have something in our code, but as between neighbors, if there's some sort of like nuisance condition, that's between neighbors at this point. I can take a look at the code and see if there's anything in there now.
I thought there was something already on the books for bamboo.
This was brought up at least twice before that I can remember. I think there were some issues that came up, and I can totally support this, and I totally agree with what you said, Mr. Yeager, about how code enforcement would be triggered once there's a call. I think that's a great aspect to go about this, instead of relying on code enforcement to go around looking for poison ivy or invasive species. The concerns that I have is a lot of properties in town have bamboo as barriers between the two properties. And I'm afraid that they might get into a situation where one's saying that the other neighbor's bamboo is encroaching on their property, even though it's probably directly on the borderline, and there's no historical information that determines who planted that or not, to determine who's responsible for it. And that can just be a pain in the butt going down the road, but that's just a practical thought. And then another thought, I think, is probably also part of the reason why this never completely went forward, was because if we pass this, the city has a lot of responsibility of itself. And I can think of multiple city properties where there is bamboo, and we will be on the hook to do it, like, be a good neighbor like everybody should, you know. That's just,
I'd like to ask a question to the solicitor based on what you just said, because I do remember this coming up. And by the way, I mean, I think anybody planting invasive species at this time makes no sense whatsoever. So that portion of it, I am fully on board with.
It's important.
My question is more of a legal question, because the complaints that I've heard from some of the municipalities that have passed a similar ordinance is this is putting neighborly disputes into the city's responsibility, rather than the neighbors handling them like handling these situations like good neighbors. And that's my question to you, Mr. Solicitor, is do you have any opinions on how this is written at this point, and have you heard any of those issues in other municipalities?
The short answer is yes, it does. I mean, Cape May Point introduced their own bamboo ordinance, and that led to some, flurry of sort of complaints, and that was in the papers for a while. In speaking to the solicitor for the city, or the borough of Cape May Point, I think that's calmed down to some degree. Ours is not similar. Ours is not exactly like theirs, but it's similar in that it's geared towards control. And there's almost a civil libertarian aspect to this, of that if you want to have a nature preserve on your property and it's not bleeding over to your neighbor's property, this kind of provides for that, actually. If you're not harming somebody else outside your property line, you have the right to kind of maintain your property. But I think the bigger problem, if you do this type of thing, I think is going to be the situation that Councilman Meyer pointed to, which is that, well, who planted it? Because properties have changed hands so many times over the past 2 years that you may have two people that don't have the history. In that case, I think the burden's on the person saying it's got to be removed by the other guy, because this code violation is potentially judged by the reasonable doubt standard, and in municipal court, potentially, which is pretty high standard. So as a practical matter, the proofs may be difficult if the facts aren't there, and it may leave it to neighbors to kind of figure it out. Like if it's bleeding over your property, maybe you just take care of it. But the provision of limiting the inquiry on the city's part to when people affirmatively like come to the city and say, hey, this is bleeding over my property, I have a problem, point to this code section. That's to prevent this from, it's to reel in the city's involvement, because if you just said any one of these species present on any property in Cape May is illegal and it's got to be removed, well, the code enforcement officer's head's going to explode because they have so many other things to do. That's not practical. So to the extent you do anything, I think this is on the practical side, but the long and the short of it is, will this present problems? There's bamboo all over this town. There's English ivy all over this town. It's going to present some enforcement issues. It's just a policy matter of whether this is limited enough and practical enough to address the concern. Those things are a problem, and people should control them, but that's.
Yeah, if nothing else, we have to start somewhere. We can't put this off and say, sorry, the neighbors can't decide who planted it, so let's just let it keep festering and let somebody plant bamboo in their backyard because they like the looks of it. That's the kind of thing I think we need to stop. And it's not just bamboo, of course. I mean,
Well, I think the idea, though, a lot of people plant the bamboo, and I'll give an example. If you walk out the side door of City Hall here, there's bamboo. Well, if they didn't have bamboo, they would have what? A vinyl fence. So at some point, the natural barrier is a lot nicer than a vinyl fence. And, I did see that they have the plantings in metal to keep it contained.
right.
So,
And in the way this is written, there's nothing wrong with what they have there.
That would be
As
okay.
long as they keep it in their yard and.
Well, originally,
control it.
they planted on city property first before we stopped that.
I also have a concern as far as if the owner fails to comply, the city then goes and removes it and then charges the property owner. I mean, how are we going to enforce that, know that it's all removed? I mean, there's bamboo companies that come in and do that. So there's some of it I like, and some of it I'm like, how are we really going to accomplish that?
But we're not taking down what's already been planted. Like before,
But if there's a
the
dispute.
other ordinance that came before us was, okay, every Bradford pear in town has to be cut down today, and that was a little.
Right, absolutely, no, and I agree with that. I'm wondering how we're going to handle, it's under 390-9, violations and penalties, the second paragraph.
I mean, one way, it may not be the most desirable way, but one way is to make nothing retroactive, and we just start from this point forward. I mean, there's, past complaints are, unless there were letters written, past complaints have to be ignored. We need to just start from a given date.
But I think neighbors still have a right to have anything that's encroaching on their property taken care of.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't think we're saying no to that.
I like that you're talking about, Mr. Yeager, getting a start, starting somewhere. And I think what you just said, Deputy Mayor, is a question I have for the solicitor. If someone has any type of planting, including trees or anything else of that matter, that's encroaching on another person's property and could potentially harm or cause damage to their property, they could already there's already a process for that, isn't that?
There's a private process for those types of things.
Okay.
So, and this would be kind of geared towards that, and drawing the line at the property line, hopefully, to say, look, and that's why there's provisions in here for abatement. You can cut it back, put in a shield, bamboo shield at the property line, and then if that person likes that natural barrier, they can have it on their side, as long as it's not encroaching on the other side.
So, and we have to start somewhere. There's too many things that people don't even know are
Some things are
invasive
invasive.
plants, and they're planting them on their properties now. We really need to get a handle on it and get started somewhere. So again, this is here for, tell me what you need
So can I get into the details for a second?
Sure,
Question for you.
absolutely.
And it's just the paragraph that Councilwoman Baldwin just brought up. If the owner fails to comply with such notice within the time specified therein, the city may remove or abate the same under the direction of the Public Works Superintendent, and the cost of removal or abatement as nearly as can be ascertained shall be certified the Public Works Superintendent to the Chief Financial Officer. I'm not so sure that's the direction the city wants to go in removing invasive species itself. I'd much rather have some kind of enforcement that forces the property owner, the homeowner, to remove.
I totally agree with you. I don't want to see any city employees on anybody's property.
Yeah.
That's not,
So can
Doing
we
work on
strike
everybody's
that? Would you don't like that?
I know.
Oh, okay.
I want to do anything we can to
Right.
get.
So
this.
can we agree to strike that now?
I would like to have that.
I also, I'm not liking
As
above
long as
it
there's
either.
some teeth here.
Yeah, right. I just think, I really don't like the idea of the city going on someone's property and chopping stuff down.
I understand.
Well, see, I don't like the right above it. Let's look up right above it, because to me, that says that, they can go now and take away these invasive species on these people's properties. I don't think we want to do that.
Okay, well, I think it's the cost of abatement is what we're talking about.
Yeah, but I
It's
don't-
not, we're not talking about tearing it out. Again, I think we're talking about.
So, just to be clear, what this violations provision points to is not like an automatic, here's your summons, see you in court. It directs the enforcement officer to send a notice, a letter, saying, look, I've identified this issue, we've received the complaint essentially. And 30, 45 days, come up with a plan of action. And then at that point, if they don't respond to that in some way, or there's no plan of action to address it, then that's when the summons part of it comes in.
Right, but I don't think I think A has to be rewritten and say invasive property plant on somebody else's property, because what that's saying, if it's found on your property and it was planted wild, it sounds like they can still go after it and for you to get it removed. And I don't think we want to do that.
Talks about whenever an invasive plant as defined by this chapter. So I would read that as if there's a plant on another person's property invading, that qualifies as invasive invading on another person's property, then that would be triggered.
It said on any plot of land. That was not saying on a neighbor's plot of land.
Well, whenever an invasive plant is found on any plot of land, that.
Right. But you're allowed to have these invasive plants that are planted now on your land.
But when you read this in connection with the rest of it, that's why it's informed, it indicates that we don't want code enforcement to just see a plant and you have to cut it down. That's not the purpose of this. This is geared towards, is it an invasive species? And is it going over your property line? Just because you have a Bradford pear or poison ivy or whatever on your property, if you want to have a wildlife preserve, you can do that, essentially, under this code. But it's the point that you stretch beyond your property boundaries. That's when you run into a problem under this code, and that's when you would get a notice.
Okay, because that's not how we were reading it when it came before us. That's why.
No,
That's why.
but
I'm
if you
bringing-
take a look, it says no new plantings. No person, contractor shall plant any species, tree, or plant that appears on the city's list. So I want to make sure that you know that it is from here on.
Well,
From here
why I'm
on,
saying
right.
that is, I just see there being a problem. Somebody goes, well, it's been here, because certain plants, they get cut back, and then the next year they come back.
If it's been there, that's why you have this, there's two elements to this. There's the control what you have, and don't plant any of this invasive species on your new construction project or whatever it is. A practical matter, they're probably not. They're going to do arborvitaes and a bunch of other stuff, and that's why that list is there for them to refer to. But if they do, and it's there, and there's really not too much proofs related to it, then the inquiry becomes, is this going over your property line? And if it isn't, and your neighbor didn't complain about it, there's really nothing to do under this code.
Okay.
And that was to, I think, directly kind of reel back the concern. I wasn't a part of those discussions before. I don't think neither I nor Councilman Yeager were, but that was kind of what we reflected on when we were looking at this, is to try and reel in the concerns from before and do it, but not in a way that was just overly draconian.
And what I asked before, if we can have a defined list.
That, yes.
And not, I don't want to make
agree.
it, 50, maybe just like the top 10.
You want to weed that list down a bit?
I was going to go on,
Very nice.
I got it. I heard it.
Okay.
I was going along with what Deputy Mayor was saying, a list. And I don't necessarily want the definitions to somehow open up this New Jersey Forestry website, like, you know what I'm saying? I don't want them to coordinate, I want this website to be just a reference. And I also, the only other thing I could think of is, I'd like to give this to my Shade Tree Commission to look at. Maybe there's things, because they're talking about trees, and maybe there's other things that they can add to it. And we're looking at the ordinance now to kind of tighten up some loose ends, and I'd like to have a reference to this ordinance and that ordinance as well.
All right.
Good.
That sounds good.
Council, could I ask more of a procedural question?
Please.
Under Section 7 for no new plantings, goes back to the list that Deputy Mayor was referring to. This says like a list of invasive species as recommended by the Environmental Commission and approved by the Planning Board. So I'm just wondering why that recommendation wouldn't be made directly to council if we were to update that list throughout the years. I'm wondering why the planning board is involved, or if that's just an extra step that's not necessarily needed. It might create some confusion.
It's probably because under the municipal land use law, the environmental commission reports to the planning board. They're advisory to the planning board. But this can be framed however you want.
I think there's another reference to it too, because say that if the Shade Tree Commission denies a removal of a tree, say for whatever reason, and then I don't know, it can help. Only the planning board can overturn the decision of the Shade Tree Commission. So if you gave some ammo or some kind of something to the planning board to give them direction of what kind of trees is appropriate, it can be part of the conditions list if they approve that the removal of the tree over the Shade Tree Commission.
But then does that take the control out of council's hand by approving an invasive species list if the planning board is the one approving it?
So that's the essential kind of question about that part of it. Do you want to delegate the list to somebody else, or do you want to establish a list and that all roads lead through council if you want to add or subtract from it?
I think it should go through council.
Through council and establish.
I personally don't care. I just want to know in 5 years when we got to add to the list, how are we doing it, you know?
So that'd be a separate ordinance?
Well, what you could do is you could do a couple things. You could one, delegate it, completely delegate it, say this list to whatever the board comes up with. You could, the 180 approach to that is you codify a list, and if you want to add to the list, you have to do it by ordinance, and it has to go through council. Or you could take a middle of the road and say, we're going to establish a list or such other list that may be authorized by resolution of council. And you could put that in your ordinance so that you keep control of it. I like the ordinance part of it, even though it's like a pain to do it, because then you avoid a bunch of resolutions all over the place.
I like that too.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll say
So,
from an
essentially-
employee's point of view, it's much easier to refer to the code and say, this is exactly what you're allowed to do, not let me find a resolution from 10 years ago that might have a list of plantings.
Yep.
So this ordinance will have a list, and if it's ever going to be changed, we'll be basically passing another ordinance, either amending this or a new ordinance to.
Can you do like the top 10 and not,
I
don't think we
I-
need,
I
I don't want to
think-
put like,
It might have to go more than 10.
Well, let's
we'll
get it.
negotiate
Yeah,
on that.
we'll get it and
we'll
weed
just-
them out.
Do we need more than 10? Probably.
well, the thing
I
is,
thought
when you
so,
when you
but
get more than 10,
it
then it
was-
becomes difficult to approve, I think.
I'm, exactly, and that's,
So
and that's what I'll discuss with the commission, is that if we're reasonable, we're going to get this passed.
Right.
And so we have some changes, good recommendations to changes, and we'll be back with the proposed ordinance then.
I can give you the copy of the other one that I had,
Okay.
Okay.
which had the list.
All right, so good work on another
Thank you.
difficult one that's come before us before, but I do think this is a good start. And I think we actually have a lot of agreement on that ordinance, so looking forward to what you come up with. On to the citywide speed reduction. Another easy one for you, Mr. Yeager, so.
Okay, all right, the speed reduction. So, I think we've discussed this briefly a few times in past council meetings, and in a past council meeting, I had agreed to, of course, meet with a committee in the city, and we had that meeting, and it was with the chief of police, it was with our city solicitor, we had the city manager, the deputy manager, the superintendent of public works, the city engineer, and then there was me. And we discussed, I guess, a number of ways to go about making the city safer. What we know from research and from information out there is that reductions of speeds from 25 miles an hour, from 30 miles an hour down to 20 miles an hour have drastic effects on injuries, both bicycles and in pedestrians.
And if I could just interrupt you on that, both Cape May Point and West Cape May use the same resolution that you worked with Mr. Solicitor in regards to exactly that, which had a perfect graph in it and a little illustration, which I thought was, it drove the point home. We'll see what happens on the county level.
Yes.
But going to the city level, what we can control.
Right, so we're looking for the county to reduce all the speed limits in our town to 25. So are our neighboring municipalities. They're definitely with us. I think the neighboring municipalities support the 20 mile an hour. Everybody should know that a city, Hoboken was the most recent city that went through a very long, expensive study, but they were able to reduce the speed limit in their entire town to 20 miles an hour. They have narrow streets like we do. They have lots of people, bicycles. They've got all the electric stuff that we have. It's a very similar situation, and they're not the only city that's accomplished that. Our group that got together talked about this, and we basically felt that, and our solicitor and our chief of police felt that, why don't we just change the speed limit to 20 miles an hour in the city of Cape May? There's other streets that need to be slower than that. There are definitely streets that have no business being 25 miles an hour that are not even posted today, which means they're 25 miles an hour. So our proposal, what we would like to propose, and again, open to discussion, is we want to change every 25 mile an hour street and in this city, just change it over to 20. We can do it a number of ways. We can certainly go after the streets. I think the streets that are probably most appropriately marked at lower speeds, but there's absolutely nothing to lose by changing the speed limit to 20 miles an hour. And people might say, well, it's going to take a lot longer to get from A to B. I can tell you, I live on the longest east-west street, which is over I don't live in Village Green, but it's in Village Green. It's Virginia Avenue. Virginia Avenue is a half a mile long. I drive that street at 25 miles an hour, and then I drove it at 20 miles an hour, and the grand total difference in time was, it's somewhere, it depends on how you accelerate. It's between 15 and 20 seconds. I mean, we're not talking about really having a major impact on the amount of time it takes a person to go from A to B.
But could have a major impact on the safety.
It will absolutely have a major impact on safety. God knows, we're getting very congested. We're encouraging people to walk, bike, and certainly electric bikes. We're encouraging people to use LSVs. I mean, the more electric that we go, the cleaner the town, the healthier the town gets. All of these basically vehicles and people are all going to be much safer traveling in this town if every street is 20 miles an hour.
Well,
If I could just add one thing to the LSV topic too, is, and this is obviously a discussion that people have talked about for some years now, but the lack of noise from electric vehicles, from some of the electric bikes that are now going very quick, you don't hear them like you hear a motor coming.
Right.
So that's just another reason that slowing people down, I think, makes us all safer.
I just want to comment, you know, reducing the speed limit is all grand and everything, except for you have to enforce it. Our biggest problem is we're at 25 now and we're not enforcing it. So no matter what you make the speed limit, it comes down to enforcement. And to be honest with you, let's keep it at 25 and let's enforce what we have on the books already. And there's certain streets that you want to reduce, and I'll give an example, Hughes Street. You want to reduce it to 20. People can't even probably get up to 25, 30 now on the street because it's so why are you reducing a speed limit when somebody theoretically could never even get up to that speed to begin with? So what we're going to do is if you reduce the speed, that means you're going to have to put speed limit signs.
Yes.
Yes.
In front of what $2 million house are you going to put a speed sign?
I have a comment that regards to that. I think if we get the approval of Councilmember Yeager to get some of these roads to 20 miles, 15 miles, even 10 miles an hour, I love what's painted in front of Sydney. If anybody's seen that, it says 10 miles an hour as you turn the curb. I say, get a list. I'm thinking Carpenter's Lane. I'm talking about Hughes. Give me a list. Let's create an ordinance, put them all in the ordinance, and I'd like to open up that contract with the sidewalk painting. And, you know, just like you said, let's not put signs up, you know? Let's keep the open air, you know, free of too many signs. And if you put signs on Carpenter's Lane and places like that, you're not going to see the sign because of all the parking. Put the speed limit on the road. 10 miles an hour, 10 feet wide, 10 feet tall. I mean, I think that's the only way people are going to see it.
Well, and just so you know, I mean, there are, if you're driving over through Village Green as an example, narrow streets, lots of people going north and south through the stop signs or rolling through the stop signs. There are speed limit signs all along those streets. Again, why not change it to 20 miles an hour?
Because
legally,
it comes to enforcement.
I'm suggesting that there's two ways to enforce it. One is, of course, the police would be stopping everybody that they can possibly stop. I hear you. But is it practical, and can we just say, Chief, you know, stop more people? Or can we have a psychological effect in this town? I think it has a psychological effect, 20 miles an hour. And again, maybe not to the people who live in the town, but it will have an effect on the people that are visiting this town. If they, you know, I really think that it does. Unfortunately, we have lots of banners we should put up when you come into town. There's only so many you can, but one of them should be, you know, please, you know, pay attention to the posted speed limits in Cape May. Will 10% of the people slow down? I think, Deputy Mayor, that would be a benefit. If we could just get 10%
Exactly.
psychologically to slow down with the sign.
And enforcement is obviously key. However, 75%, if not more, of the people pay attention to the speed limit. I mean, we wouldn't be giving out tickets to 25% of the people, you know, going by if we are giving it out to everybody. There's still, I would guess 85% of the people are going the speed limit or 2 miles above, you know, 2 miles an hour above.
Well, I think.
So if we posted at 20 and people are going 22, then, hey, we've taken them down from 27, you know? And that shows statistically a significant decrease to injuries and deaths that we've all seen it. You know, our town, as many of the streets, as you know, were built before the automobile. And frankly, we're built for horse and buggies. We still have some horse and buggies on our streets, thankfully, but they are not made for the automobile. So I do think getting people to slow down a little bit, your point of the time, most locals I know don't speed. There are a few, and a lot of them are workers trying to get to work, and I'm sympathetic to some of that. But the fact is, if you need to get through all of Cape May, that 5-mile-an-hour reduction really equates to maybe a minute or two throughout from one end to the other. And I think it just makes the residents in between safer.
I want to point out Lafayette Street. Lafayette Street, I've had people complain to me that live on Lafayette Street, which there's a sign there so they can tell how fast cars are going. They're going over 40 miles an hour on a regular basis. New Jersey Transit, and even our city trash collection is speeding down Lafayette Street. My point is, to say that's 85, I think the number's higher. I mean, these people are speeding at all hours of the day, 7 o'clock in the morning to late at night down Lafayette Street. The fact that, and I see Deacon's getting ready, that 1 month they had a traffic stop of 111 vehicles, right? And I think the person posted, so that means the police stopped in a 24-hour period 3 cars a day. 3 cars a day. There's more than 3 cars speeding in Lafayette Street in an hour. So to say that we're not stopping these cars and enforcing what we have, if they start coming through Lafayette Street and they're stopped on Lafayette Street for speeding, trust me, it's going to carry over to the rest of the town.
But
The speeding is.
enforcement, I think we all agree, is a key issue, 100%. But what we have as a legislative body is the option of what's being enforced. We can't necessarily write the tickets, but we can look at what's being enforced on the books. And I think there's no reason to not look at that 85%, and I know that's just a number I'm throwing out there, but look at that 85% of people who see a speed limit and obey the speed limit. Why not bring those people down a little bit? And frankly, maybe even bring down the speeders 5 miles an hour. Maybe they come down a little bit still. Who knows, obviously, but I still think from what we can do as a legislative body, it makes a lot of sense.
A couple of things. I like the idea of the banner. Maybe we can put a reduced speed as you're coming into town, 20 miles an hour. I'm thinking there are actually streets in the town, and you said it, that could actually be lower than 20 miles an hour. And I think that,
definitely.
yeah, and I think that might have to be looked at. The other thing, in your group that you met with, was everybody in a?
100%.
Okay. Yeah, that's all I wanted.
And I would also like to point out one of the things in that meeting was how the traffic is controlled by the speed of traffic around it, and how much of our city is covered by Jody's trolleys from Mac, the horse buggies, all of which are going well under the speed limit. And there is kind of a frustration that builds when you know you can go 25 and you're stuck behind a trolley doing 10 or 15. And I think this also could alleviate some of that's felt, because they really cover not just this whole historic area of town, but they, on some of their other tours, travel into covering almost the entire town.
I'd like to just say that, Ms. Yeager, psychological, I totally understand what you're saying by that. Remind these people, remind them, these people are on vacation, there's a lot on their mind. And if you go to your committee, you give me a list of the streets that you want ordinance to change those speeds. I'm thinking specifically around the mall area, from Perry to Ocean, everywhere around there. I'd be happy to vote on that as soon as possible. And I'd like to ensure, as soon as we do pass that, we have funding to put some either signs or paint.
Striping.
Perfect.
Yep.
That's part of that.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
And then specifically, maybe looking at the streets that you would be under 20, and just for everyone's, so they don't think we're looking at a lot of streets in that, but I know you mentioned some of them, like a Yacht Avenue, you know, it's a very small street, Hughes, Corgi, You know, I would say most of the one-way streets in the city of Cape May are pretty small streets.
I would also ask that Elmira be included in that. In West Cape May, Central and Park are already at 20 miles an hour, the curve's at 10. So we would kind of just be matching what people are already driving instead of having them rev up as they come into the city.
And West Cape May asked if we would make their section also, I mean, you know, they would like to see their section of Elmira at 20 miles an hour.
Yes, and they've already made the rest of that curve 20 miles an hour.
Right, right. I think the people on Yacht Avenue have already taken it upon themselves, and they've posted their own speed limit sign.
Well, I'm
It's
surprised-
10, which is,
I'm
Oh, I thought they
sorry.
went with 9.5.
I'm surprised people can even speed on Yacht Avenue.
well, you can't.
And I don't know if there's anybody really complaining that they're speeding on Yacht Avenue.
Well, you have to make a wake sometimes on
Make a wake, right.
Yeah, during high
no
tide.
wake zone.
I think the real speed signs on those roads are the dirty looks you get if you go over 10.
Yes, that's right.
You're
That's right.
clearly lost.
Well, thank you all very much for the
Thank
input.
you.
Okay. Before we get into ordinances, I do want to mention one thing. This is the first meeting we've had since the lawsuit against our city manager, Stacy Sheehan, our deputy mayor, and of course, the city of Cape May has been dismissed and dismissed with prejudice. And I do want to congratulate Stacy and Mike and frankly the taxpayers of the city of Cape May in defending that lawsuit. I'm going to say the people up here are people, so this can weigh on people in a very difficult way. No one likes being sued, especially for stating the facts. And I have to say, as mayor, I've attempted to bring a lot of people together and try to be mayor for everybody. I have zero interest in political bickering. I ran for mayor because I love Cape May and I want to see Cape May at its very best. However, we as a council have a moral and a fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers of Cape May. We have an obligation to use the funds to build affordable housing for hardworking people in the city of Cape May. We will work with Fair Share Housing, and we will make the Affordable Housing Fund whole. We were left with several messes, frankly, previously, and this was one of them. This was one mess that was left over from the previous administration. This council didn't ask for it. Frankly, a whistleblower told us about it, and we immediately stopped it. Then we had our auditor take a look at what was done, and he said it was wrong. We had a forensic accountant look at it, and he said it was wrong. We had the Department of Community Affairs look at it, and they said it was wrong, as well as various attorneys who were all in agreement that what had happened with the trust fund was wrong. But most of all, the Fair Share Housing itself and the Fair Share Housing Director who oversee this fund said that what occurred was wrong. What more can I really say as mayor than what the executive director who's in charge of administering the fund said when he said, quote, "What happened is deeply wrong." And, quote, "We believe that now is the time for the city to take civil action to recover illegally distributed funds." That's what the executive director said, not anyone on this council. This is a fund for exactly what the city needs, affordable housing. Not only will we work to make this fund whole, but we have already began working with the Housing Authority to see that these funds are used how they should be, to create better and more low-income housing. As mayor, that's what interests me, working to make Cape May a better and more just place. I do feel for the people who are involved in this who do not deserve blame. Some of those people involved are the city's best employees, and I say that emphatically. However, this could not be more clear. The low-income housing fund must be made whole. We need to put this misuse of public funds in the past, and we need to get to work on what the fund is for. building and affordable housing for which the city of the Cape May desperately needs. And I appreciate your moment on that, but that's extremely important for the city of Cape May moving forward. On to ordinances for introduction.
Yes, Mayor. We've already tabled Ordinance 474-2022. So first up, we have 475-2022, an ordinance amending Section 7 of the Cape May City Code to update local requirements for stormwater management to reflect amendments to the NJDEP stormwater management rules under NJAC 7:8.
Do I have a motion?
Second?
I just have a quick question. It says it's following with new language. Is the whole ordinance new language?
Yes,
And is it replacing an old ordinance?
yes.
Okay.
There's a prior version. If you look at the new code versus the old code, the sections are largely the same. It's because I think that's based off an old state model. And this would essentially plug in the new state model into that code
Okay,
section.
because why I asked, usually we have cross-outs and bold, and that's why there was nothing crossed out. I wasn't sure. So we're totally taking out the other ordinance and replacing it with this one.
Right, but this, and I thought that would be a more organized way of doing this, rather than, there'd be so many strikeouts in the old one, it would almost be unreadable. So that's why, and the old one is so similar to this, including like the headings of each section, that it made sense, from my perspective, to just, this is the model ordinance from the state. The state wants us to, every municipality to adopt this. And I thought that was the most organized way of presenting this to council.
And this came from the state word for word, or?
That's correct.
Okay.
And this is also for large developments.
It covers major development.
Major
as defined
developments.
under there. That's correct.
The area that I have a little bit of a concern with, and I spoke to our solicitor about it, are these stormwater basins. Specifically, when you're looking at holding water in a stormwater basin or any kind of standing water, I'm concerned about what that's going to look like. Is that something that the planning board would look at as far as fencing for safety reasons, the obvious reasons? And I don't know if you were able to find out anything additional on that. Is that something that we can add to this, or would this be something that the planning board would have
I think
jurisdiction over?
The planning board would have jurisdiction over this. I think council would maintain jurisdiction over this. So to the extent that one of these basins would go in, council could very easily pass an ordinance saying, old, new basin, we don't care. It's a public health and safety measure to require fencing and to put that in. So you could do that in here. We could find a place to put that language, or you could cross that bridge if you get to it as well. If to the extent that an application was before the planning board could require as a condition that those safety considerations be included in any storm basin project.
I think it
And
seems simple enough that we could add it now if that's something you'd like.
I would like to. I was hard pressed to even think about any basins throughout the city, but if we're looking at a larger development, there might be one.
Well, I don't know why we would even want to have a basin, though, to be honest with you.
You're talking about like what you see next to a parking lot?
Uh-huh.
For some reason, I've always seen them with some kind of fencing around them.
Yeah, but we don't have that in this, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's a good point.
If I can, sorry to interrupt, but I did have like sort of some proposed language to address this, and it would be on page 29. This is under the sections A through E regarding safety standards for stormwater management basins. And what you could consider doing is adding a new section F under that elevation view graphic. And it could say this, it could say fencing, period. Fences shall be erected to completely surround the ponds, storm drain, outfalls, and safety ledge structures, except as may be noted below. And then it goes on to say, generally fences shall be 4 feet in height and erected 2 feet from the edge of the safety ledge where provided. Where fences are erected on slopes and are across depressions, swales, etc., the fence shall be constructed so as to prevent access underneath intermittent fence sections are permitted as long as signs are posted where the fence does not exist. Fencing should not be constructed across creeks, streams, channels, or other open drainage ways. Where fences are terminated at creeks, streams, channels, and other open drainage ways, a metal sign, a minimum of 18 inches in width and a minimum of 12 inches high, shall be securely attached to the fence that reads, "Stormwater Management Area, no trespassing."
That satisfies what I was looking for. I like that language.
Does this have to go before the planning board for approval or for input?
I don't think so, because I see this as I see this specific portion as a public health and safety issue.
Oh, no, I mean, the whole ordinance.
Whole ordinance.
I don't mean just that one. Because I think that the planning board should have input, since they're the ones that were going to be implementing this, to have feedback on this ordinance.
Right, this is from the DEP, right?
Yes.
This is from the DEP.
Yeah, but I just, sometimes, the planning board, they want certain things clarified. Yeah.
I will say I didn't factor in a planning board review into this estimated adoption timeline because I didn't see it referenced in this ordinance.
I didn't necessarily.
I don't, go ahead. I
Sorry.
just didn't foresee it going to the planning board.
I wasn't necessarily looking at this as a development ordinance where, your typical zoning ordinance. This is sort of basically a public safety and health issue in terms of how you manage stormwater.
Yeah, but I know in the planning board that Craig looks at their management of water when it comes off. And that's one reason why I thought that for him to look at this, just I feel, for clarification, there's something we're missing, since they do that on a regular basis.
This was,
And that it's going to, they're the ones that are going to have to put in certain wording for
We're
these
just-
developments.
We're just introducing it now. Is there any way that we could have him look at it before?
Could you add that to the
The,
agenda, Mayor? Is that something you can
yeah,
do?
absolutely, yeah. To the planning board?
The planning board has a
Yeah.
discussion item.
If I may, this ordinance was prepared in conjunction with Vince Orlando, our city engineer, so it's already received an engineering overview.
Okay.
Right, but the thing is when it comes before the planning board, it's not Vince putting in the language, it's
So,
Craig.
I'll-
And that's where,
This wouldn't be passed for second reading for another month. I'd be happy to add this to the agenda for the planning board,
I think it's perfect.
or at least ask the chairman to add
I
it to the planning.
I also have a question pertaining to the fences, new language. Would we have to put that around the duck pond at Kiwanis Park?
That's a pond, not a basin.
Well, ponds are covered in it, so that's why, that's a good question. I think we're talking about, I think, areas that are not parks, right?
I don't know, I just
Yeah,
kind of
but-
listening
but-
to what you were reading.
Well, asking that rhetorically to kind of point out that isn't the goal of this to prevent areas which are not like frequented by the public necessarily?
Or-
That's what council would want to capture by this.
well, I think it's more of water that's not there one day and there the next. So it's not a consistent water,
Stormwater, right.
yeah. But to that point, I don't know where we would have that in town anyway.
So
I
I
don't
think,
know where
I think
either, but-
stormwater.
There's a couple.
There is
I
a
don't know
couple.
them offhand, but I just
I
know
know.
through the CRS program, we report our stormwater basins, and I know that we're sending in at least 3. So there are a handful.
Yeah, as far as the calculations and how fast they recharge and, I don't know that.
The other thing too, this isn't like a general regulation. It would require fencing in connection with a major development that's triggering this ordinance. So these are the safety standards that would apply to a project that is governed by this ordinance, which only applies to major development. So we can certainly carve out some things, but this isn't like, if you were to pass that, that would not just apply broadly. It would only apply in the event this is triggered.
Okay.
And I'll
That
point out
makes
just
sense.
to the review part of this, I think that that's 100% fine to send this to the planning board and get some comment. But this is a model that came from the state, and if you look around, the adoption of this has been nearly uniform throughout the state of New Jersey. I drafted this for West Cape May before I came over here 2 years ago. So that a lot of municipalities have been adopting this model. That's not a reason to not get another set of eyes on it.
Then can I make a suggestion that we introduce it this evening? If anybody has any comments based on further thought, we can.
I was supportive of Councilmember Baldwin's amendment if she wants to make that motion.
I'd like to make that motion to add that language,
So do you have a motion to amend?
motion to
have
amend
a
to add the
second?
I'll
language.
second that.
Second. Any comments on that? Roll call?
Councilmember Baldwin,
Yes,
Councilmember Meyer,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sheehan,
Yes.
Councilmember Yeager,
Yes.
Mayor Mellick.
Yes. Now, do I have a motion on the amended ordinance?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any other questions or comments? I'd just say again, if anybody wants to review this further as before second reading, we can certainly look at it again.
And this is going to the planning board.
And we'll put it on the planning board.
And I will speak to that as soon as we're done with roll call.
Okay. Roll call?
Councilmember Baldwin,
Yes,
Councilmember Meyer,
What? Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sheehan,
Yes.
Councilmember Yeager,
Yes.
Mayor Mellick.
Yes.
Okay, the only reason I keep bringing this up is because I didn't anticipate it going to the planning board, and they can technically have, I believe, 35 days to review it. I had this coming back for second reading and adoption on September 6th, a little less than a month, because there's an extra week in August in between meetings, so it works out publication-wise, and I believe the planning board has potentially.
They don't have a meeting.
Yeah, they canceled their next meeting. So I just want to make sure we're all on the same page about when
So
this
they
is coming
won't
back
have-
before
They're
council.
not going to have a meeting then until,
They won't meet until September 13th, right then? If we're the 6th, they're the 13th. So
So would that be?
potentially, we could bring this back for September 20th.
for his review?
Well, my thinking is if it's going to be on the 13th, it's going to be less than a month from now. It's going to be part of the packet. Everybody and the planning board is going to have that packet for about a week. And when it's time to discuss it and Craig Hurlis to give his input, that'll be done at the meeting. And right after that, we'll have that right before the city council meeting, I guess.
no,
I'm just wondering if we'll have recommendations from the planning board to provide to council with that short of a turnaround, though.
the second adoption is the 6th. We got to move it out to the 13th.
Just quick, one thing is, as the solicitor said, this has been universally or almost uniformly passed across the state. So
But
this,
I'm
Good.
sorry. There's no rush, though, to get this approved, right? I mean,
so,
right,
so we just introduced it. The planning board could take a look at it. And based on if they have suggested changes, then we're going to have to re-advertise. If they don't have suggested changes, we won't,
Right.
right? Okay?
Okay.
Yep.
But I
So
think we need a second reading adoption pushed out.
it would be the 20th would be for us then.
Right.
So potential second reading and consideration for adoption on September 20th by council. And
That's
I will
great.
go ahead and provide this to the planning board secretary for
And
their
if they
meeting on the
do-
13th.
If they do have substantial changes, we'll re-advertise.
Yeah, redo it, yeah.
All right,
Okay, thank you.
I don't think,
okay. Ordinance 475?
We're actually on to
Or no?
476,
76.
2022.
Only get to say one and I'm wrong.
An ordinance authorizing a lease agreement with Mid-Atlantic Center for the Arts, Inc. for continued operation of the mall information booth.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to introduce.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments on this?
I just thought it was pretty cool. I didn't realize that they sold beach tags there, so I appreciate that. It's pretty nice.
Now, as we all know, MAC has done a wonderful job, great ambassadors for the city of Cape May, and even bring in some revenue, so we do appreciate it.
I'll just point out that the original agreement called them to sell beach tags. I think that has.
That has expired.
Right. So the new agreement just kind of recognizes that steward for that booth. They're going to continue to provide information related to numerous events in the city. To the extent people are looking for beach tags, they will point them to where they're sold, but they haven't been in the business of selling them for some time. So I think that the goal of this was to recognize the reality of that. And much like other nonprofit associations we have with city property, they've been a good steward to that one, and that's going to be the relationship.
I take back everything I just said about.
I really,
Well, I just wanted to make sure that was clear, because I think Jody was kind of laughing about that. But the other thing, too, I think,
roping them back in.
but the important thing is, and this is the lease, is that there's going to be some emergency equipment associated with that building, which has been, I think, important throughout the city this past summer.
That's
and
great.
Mac was 100% in favor of it, so that was great.
That's great. All right. Any other questions or comments? Roll call?
Councilmember Baldwin?
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sheehan?
Yes.
Councilmember Yeager?
Yes.
Mayor Mullick?
Yes. And Jody is in attendance, right? Just want to recognize the hard work you have done for the city, and we thank you.
Mayor, next up, we have the public portion on the resolutions only. If you would like to open it to the public at that time.
Open it up for the public for public comment on resolutions only. Anyone like to speak on the resolutions? Please.
And if everyone could just please state their name and address for the record into the microphone if the green light is on, ma'am.
They can't hear you.
Ms. Bryan, I'm sorry, we can't hear you. You can move that.
Oh, sorry.
There we go.
Okay, Susan Bryant, is that better?
Yes.
5730 Cedar Avenue, Pennsauken. Cape May native, as were my father and grandfather since the 1880s. And we owned property in Cape May until 2021. I worked pro bono. I'm here to talk about the Franklin Street Library. I'm sure you already figured that out. But anyway, I worked pro bono on the grant for many months as a library building consultant with Andrea Orsini, the county librarian, and Michael Califatti, the architect, and the core group on the bond, and to get the grant for the New Jersey State Library. And I'm a retired library director and library consultant, and also a registered library building consultant in New Jersey, and I worked at the New Jersey State Library for many years. So I'm here tonight because I'm concerned about the budget and plans for the Franklin Street Library. 138 libraries applied for the New Jersey State Library grant. 38 were awarded. That was the first round. Cape May has a stellar project, as you know. When we were doing the planning, this was the early part of 2020, many months, and of course COVID was rearing its head at that time, and we talked about the fact that there might be budget difficulties. We didn't know what was ahead, but with bidding laws in New Jersey, you have to give the best estimates you can at the time. You can't pad it, you just have to go with what you have. And Mr. Califatti was very careful with the historic aspects of the building, trying to give very good estimates, but it's very hard with historic buildings too. So I know we have a shortfall. I've been reading the papers, and luckily I was in town tonight, so I wanted to voice some of my concerns. Other libraries are having the same difficulty. We're not the only one. I did 2 other projects that were successfully funded, and everyone has cost overruns, but people are working really hard to make sure that they're moving ahead with their projects. And our project really is one of the best in the state, in my opinion. I've looked at a lot of the different ones. Bear with me for a minute. And we are very fortunate to have our very strong partners, the Cape May Board of Commissioners, the Cape May Commission of the Library Commission, the CCA, David's here tonight, and our citizens who really came out to bat for this project. It's not always the case that people come out for libraries. People storm the gates, and you remember that, and your support. The plans are set. I did read in the paper that there's an idea to nix the addition. Have been approved. Well, I'm here to advocate. That may have changed, but anyway, I want to make my case. I hope you have good news, but anyway, that's important to me to advocate for this project. So the addition is a small addition. It's going to have the teen center, a computer closed bank, and a quiet study area. Our present library on Ocean Street only has computers in the middle of the floor and 1 shelf for teens. So this is important in a contemporary library. The state library has approved the plans as part of the $4.3 million that we got from them. The National Park Service has approved the plans, and so has the Historic Preservation Commission, the state and local. And it's not a small item to get those changes through. Respectfully, Stacy, you can't just say, like, we want this change, because we're locked in, and for good reason. There's high competition for these grants, and they really looked at the plans and said, these are good plans. So anyway, that's like not an easy thing. If you think getting an invasive species ordinance is tough, try going for the Historic Sites Commission. That was walking a little bit of a tightrope. I know I had to speed up, Aaron. Anyway, I read in the paper that a task force has been set up, and interesting to me, that old switching telephone station that Verizon had, you know what, you can sell that. I mean, fine, you want to have a task force, but if you want to make up a difference of money, sell it. And I mean, I read in the paper the ideas that people were suggesting for that building. Half the things that people said were what that library on Franklin Street is going to do. It's going to be a community center for senior citizens. It's going to be so fabulous that you don't need another senior citizen center. And okay, a gym, yeah, people would love that, but we have so many problems in this town. A parking lot would be good, you know, but there are ways to get revenue. And if worse came to worse, you could fundraise for furnishings. I wouldn't recommend that, because fundraising gets into a hole. You have to have really professional people, but it could be done. The Princeton Library, when they added on in 2003, and of course Princeton is one of the richest towns in the state, they had an article in the newspaper about the coming library edition. Some man that was not even a library patron wrote out a check for $5 million. You just never know who in this town cares about the library besides me, who is not rich, you know. So anyway, there are ways to do this, and it's so important to get this Franklin Street school, which has been languishing since I was a little girl, and Stacy knows it, and we all know it. And Zach with the Harriet Tubman Museum is fantastic, and this renovation of the black part of town, it's great. But this library is going to be a gem in it, so please work it out with the county. We're lucky to have partners like the county and the Library Commission, because you don't always get that level of support with libraries. And so thank you for all your support. I know you want to support it, but this is really important for this town, and especially for the new people. I don't know Lorraine or Mike as well, and thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for all your hard work on the grant and everything. I mean,
Well,
it's huge.
pro bono library consultants, I saved you some money there too, so put that in the kitty.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Any other comment from the public, on the resolutions only?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I do have a couple things on discussion on the speed thing. This isn't the area. Resolution 216-18-2022 that refers to the Wawa grant. I believe that's something we should acknowledge Wawa and the Foundation for Heroes in Cape May. This is the Wawa on Texas Avenue that we applied for for the last 3 years, even through COVID. First grant was $8,000, second grant was $10,000, the third now again is another $10,000 that we will.
That's awesome.
You know, we're looking to earmark towards a decent program that we have that I believe will save lives in the coming months. So we'll bring that about. But again, to openly thank Wawa, the Heroes Foundation, and the staff down there does a phenomenal job. Kept us going all through COVID and everything else, being open and doing their best work for us. So that's my issue with them. Also, the resolution on fast charging, I think that's a great idea as far as getting that into the city. The mayor and council had tasked us with buying or purchasing some electric vehicles, which we did purchase two. The Mustang is in. We're working on getting it lettered up and everything. And then the Lightning pickup will be here hopefully by December. And that's the start of our two electric vehicles. Our hybrids did come in. So the hybrid vehicles you bought last September are in. So the hybrid electric gas vehicles are in. It's the one black car you'll see outside, and then the marked car. One is the captain's car, but one is the marked car that will be here in about a week. So it's very quiet. You don't even hear it running. So it's a little bit confusing when you're driving it. But again, thank you, Council, for those resolutions.
That's great. Thank you, Chief.
Chief, real quick, those vehicles, you said were going to be marked vehicles, correct?
Yeah, the one was slated for an admin car, that's the one black car. The next 3 cars, so the Mustang, the pickup, and the vehicle, the hybrid that's coming next week, are all marked. So black and white marked. And we changed up the schematic a little bit, so instead of just being the badge, I took the entire side of the vehicle on both sides and put police on the side of the car, and then the badge is shrunk down a little bit. It's got more markings on it, more reflective lighting on it, and then the pickup will be the same schematic with police down the side
It's
of it.
always a good deterrent.
Yes, ma'am. So we only have that one black vehicle. It's a command vehicle, so that's for the captain's car.
I think that's great, and I know we're going to be one of the first cities to have.
You already are. You're already going to be the first in Cape May County with fleets. New York's already a step ahead of us, but there are other places north of us that have electric.
We're beating
fleet,
them in
but
other things, but that's good.
We're going to beat them in other things. But again, thank you. I do have some discussion on speed. I'll bring that up.
Absolutely. Any further comment on resolutions only? Okay, look to close public comment on the resolutions. On to the consent agenda.
Yes, council, is there anything you'd like to remove from the consent agenda or acknowledge tonight?
I would like the minutes of May 17th taken off. I would like Resolution 201 taken off.
Can you also pull 17 and 219?
Yes.
And then
19 will do different.
I just want to clarify, everybody received a late email from our clerk for the minutes from May 17th and June the 8th with some minor changes to them. Just making sure that that's okay to, I know, Shane, you just said that you wanted the ones from May 17th taken off. That was one of the ones that I was referring to, but June 8th I'm okay with on the consent agenda, if everyone's okay with the comments.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
All set? All right, on the consent agenda this evening, we have Cape May City Council work session meeting minutes dated May 3rd, Cape May City Council special meeting minutes dated June 8th, Cape May City Council closed session meeting minutes dated June 8th, Cape May City Council work session minutes dated June 8th, Cape May City Council regular meeting minutes dated June 21st, City Council work session meeting minutes dated July 5th, City Council regular meeting minutes dated July 19th, 2022. We've got the fire incident report for the month of July 2022, the tax collector report for the month of June 2022, Resolution 212-08, 2022, resolution authorizing an agreement for member participation in cooperative pricing system 25 CMACP between the County of Cape May as lead agency and the City of Cape May as a participating agency. 213-08, 2022, resolution authorizing a member participation into a cooperative pricing system for rock salt with the County of Cape May. 214-08, 2022, resolution authorizing a contract for professional services to Blasio and Associates for the construction phase engineering services for reconstruction of Pennsylvania Avenue Phase 7, which is from Michigan to Trenton. 215-08, 2022, resolution endorsing MAC application for the Cape May County Open Spaces Historic Preservation Grant regarding the Physics State property. 216-08, 2022, resolution providing for an insertion of a special item of revenue into the budget. This is for the Wawa Foundation grant. And 218-08, 2022, this is resolution for the payment of bills.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And just quickly, I just want to say good luck to Mac and thank you again to Wawa. Roll call?
Councilmember Baldwin?
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sheehan?
Yes?
Councilmember Yeager?
Yes.
Mayor Mullock?
Wait a minute.
Question mark?
I have to, I'm sorry, we are doing the consent agenda here with all those items.
Are we abstaining from certain minutes?
I have to abstain from the June 8th special meeting minutes, closed session meeting minutes, and the work session meeting minutes.
Okay, we'll denote that you're
But yes
abstaining from
on
those
everything
minutes.
else.
Thank you.
Okay, and Mayor Mullock?
Yes.
Wonderful. All right, so going back to the Cape May City Council regular meeting minutes dated May 17th, 2022.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Any questions or comments? Roll call?
Councilmember Baldwin?
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
Abstain.
Deputy Mayor Sheehan?
Yes?
Councilmember Yeager?
Yes.
Mayor Mullick?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, and we have Resolution 201-07, 2022, resolution authorizing the County of Cape May to award a contract for the renovation and restoration of Franklin Street School.
Do I have a motion?
I'm proud to make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any questions or comments on this resolution?
I have a couple comments. This resolution calls for the library at Franklin Street School to go to make sure I have the proper. To go to a price tag of $9.1 million. When we originally went for the library, the cost to renovate Franklin Street School was going to be around $6 million. Actually, it was going to be less than that, and that's why each of the three parties were putting in $2 million, so that would cover the cost of renovation to that building to put the library in. With that, we were told that we're going to go after all these grants and that it won't even cost the city $2 million. And we've gotten these grants, and it was wonderful that we were able to achieve getting these grants. But what it hasn't done is now we are at, instead of being $6 million, we're at $9 million just for the construction, which is going to be even more than that. And with that being said, we never went out to bond for the library bond because of the fact we were going to be getting all these grants. So when we don't even know what the interest is going to be for this bond, since we haven't gone out to secure this bond. So that's one of my concerns there, and what it's actually going to cost the taxpayers when it's done. I like the wording in the resolution that it sticks to the fact that we said 2.3, and we're not going to go over that, and it's going to have to come back to council if it's going to be going over that to re-vote on who pays the difference. I want to make everybody aware, as the county and the Library Commission, they've paid for these other libraries in other towns. In Cape May, we're actually putting towards this project. To belong to the Library Commission, this year we paid $1.2 million to the Library Commission, besides what we're going to be paying to construct this library. This is wonderful that we're doing this library. The reason why I was saying to take off the addition is that maybe to reduce that cost from that $9 million, so that instead of putting on this addition, maybe we can put outside seating. I do know that the state SHPO had concerns about this addition because you were taking away some of the historic character that when you walk into the gym, you're not going to notice a gym when you put on this addition. So that's why I was saying maybe we can take off that addition. As nice as this library is, and I'm glad we are preserving the Franklin Street School. I think at this point that the price has gotten out of hand, and I would like to have seen us rebid this project. I think $9 million is 50% over what we thought it was going to be. So at this point, I would have to vote no for this ordinance.
Okay.
Can I bring up a couple of things?
Please go
Mayor?
ahead.
Okay, because I know we have some red lines from the original resolution. There's a couple of things that are on here that stated that the second prospective bidder, and did everybody get a copy of that? As far as is that the resolution that we have to adopt that? We have to make the changes to that, and I'd like to make a motion to change that.
So we have a tabled resolution, and maybe our solicitor could go over that.
I can, Councilwoman Baldwin, would you like me to go over the changes that were in that draft? Circulated a draft to reflect one thing, that the resolution that's been floating around the past few meetings has a $10 million figure, and we were not adopting that because we wanted to hear hopefully some good news from the county that they would have the potential, because they are the party awarding this contract, to award to the lowest bidder, which was the figure that's in the revised resolution, which is $9,114,995 is the lowest prospective bidder to the county. So number one, the resolution's been reflected to incorporate that lower number, which all parties are happy to see. The second thing is, I made some clarifications in here that I thought were important to point out what council was doing and what you're not doing. You previously authorized, or the city previously authorized an agreement, a mutual agreement with the Library Commission and the county, of course, and that provides for the $2 million cap that we've been speaking about and a $300,000 contingency. Council bonded for the $2 million. That $2 million was authorized by a bond at that time. So council is not awarding this contract, but basically saying to the county, okay, if you have the low bidder there, we're good for the $2 million. We already bonded for it. If you need the $300,000, that's not authorized in here. That's the subject of a further resolution, which is consistent with what that agreement says. If you want to authorize the 3, you come back and we'll talk about it, which is what this reflects. Furthermore, council is not, the city is not committed to anything beyond 2.3. And that is the subject, that would have to be the subject of an entirely different discussion at that point. That's reflected in this resolution. So I wanted to point that out just to be clear, to avoid any confusion about what council is doing or isn't doing based on a $9 million figure and a $2 million shared services agreement. So I just want to make sure everybody's clear on that. And that's what's in, that's the red line that is before council tonight. And if you would like to incorporate those,
I'd like to,
you can make a motion.
And I'd like to incorporate and make a motion to make the changes to this resolution.
Do I have a second? And that's on
I'll
the
second.
revision, just a technical, then we would be voting on the revised resolution, correct?
So you'll motion to amend,
Right.
and then you would motion to adopt as amended.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table to amend. We have a second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Baldwin?
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sheehan?
Abstain?
Councilmember Yeager?
Yes.
Mayor Mullick?
Yes.
Okay, so do we have a motion
Now a
to
motion on the
adopt as amended?
adopt as amended?
I'll make a motion to adopt as amended.
I'll second that.
I'll just say on this, one, I thank you to the county, especially Administrator Kevin Lair, who I know really worked on this, making sure we got this low bid in at the 9.1 and didn't go above that. And appreciate the patience of the citizens as well as we put this on the agenda a couple times. We did that in case we got word that, hey, these people have bonded, we're ready to go. We didn't want to slow down the project. I want to also thank Commissioner Hayes, Susan Bryant, who's with us this evening, the Center for Community Arts. I see some representatives from there as well, and our architect, Michael Calafati, the state of New Jersey, and of course, the Library Construction Bond Grant, the Cape May County Library Commission, and again, especially the citizens of Cape May. Yes, there are going to be some difficulties ahead. Yes, this did come in more than we were hoping it would. The county's really handling those aspects of the project, but with that $3.4 million grant, we still pay for the entirety of this construction project under the grant that had, under the bond, pardon me, that had been previously approved for $2 million. So again, we're doing this without a tax increase. We're fixing up a beautiful building that we've all walked past and said, man, we just are not getting anything out of what was once a very beautiful building. I think it celebrates an important history to the city of Cape May. It brings people together in a community sense. So I really think to bond for $2 million and get a $9 million project out of it, you know, there's a couple ways to look at it, but certainly that's one way. And to see this building fixed up, I know we'll be proud. So. Any other comments on the resolution?
Do we know if a start date or a time?
We're going to push as soon as this passes to get the project started.
Sounds good to me.
I think we're the last to approve.
Yeah, the county's approved. Yeah.
I think we're the last to
Yeah.
approve.
All right.
I just want to make one statement to the clerk. Can you please make sure in the minutes that my statement on why I voted no is placed in the minutes?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, roll call?
Councilmember Baldwin?
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sheehan?
No?
Councilmember Yeager?
Yes.
Mayor Mullick?
Yes.
Okay. And next, we have Resolution 21708, 2022. This is a resolution providing for the insertion of a special item of revenue in the budget pursuant to Chapter 159. This is the fiscal year 2022 NJDEP Electric Vehicle DC Fast Charger Community Grant.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Questions, comments?
My question is, do we have a spot to put these chargers? I know we had gotten a grant before for charging stations that never got put in, and we kind of lost that grant. So I just want to make sure we have a spot to put these, because I don't know if council remembers, the last spot, we wanted to put it on Bank Street, and they realized it wasn't a good location, so that was my question.
Yes, we are meeting to discuss the pros and cons of the Jackson Street lot and the Welcome Center. In terms of, we're going to have one meeting, and we're going to decide, put it in, because I think we wind up with more than one of these over the course of time. So it isn't a question of, do we do this one or do we do this one? It's more, which one do we do first?
So this is just for one charging station?
No, as many as we can.
Okay.
As many as we can under this
Okay.
grant.
Right.
I guess how you worded, I thought you meant
Yeah.
just putting one in.
No, and like, just so everyone knows, the Welcome Center, we have to put one with the 20-plus spaces by state law.
Right.
So now, we don't have to pay for, well, we pay for it through a
Right.
grant.
So is there any other spots that we were looking? You said the Jackson Street and the Welcome Center. So we actually have spots, because I don't want us to lose what we lost last time with
No,
that grant.
no, no.
And that's why.
We won't.
I see volunteers raising their hands for a location, and so we will not lose it, that's for sure.
I'd like to also, my concern is making it accessible and free for the police department to use.
Oh,
for
yeah.
Charging vehicles. So we might want one in City Hall parking lot, which also would benefit City Hall employees if they happen to use.
We are getting, through the Gentilini that we purchased the cars from, we will be getting charging equipment with them, and we have a plug right outside this other door that we used to plug the speed thing in. So we're good for the police cars.
Okay, good news,
Okay.
good news.
And this will be a fee involved, right? The one that we're putting in?
For any public stations,
Yes.
yes. And we will eventually, as the fleet changes to an electric fleet, not just for the city of Cape May, but America in general, we'll look to have a municipal charging station, either over at DPW or in City Hall, or probably both.
And just to say on this, it's a $75,000 grant, which is great. And I know over 200 municipalities applied for this grant, and nobody received it. So the city's lucky to get $75,000. It's really cool.
Yeah, I think I read in there, though, us doing anything until it actually gets approved.
That's correct.
Right.
So I guess there's a chance that we might not get it.
Oh, yeah. Okay, do we have a motion and a second? Roll call?
Councilmember Baldwin?
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sheehan?
Yes.
Councilmember Yeager?
Yes.
Mayor Mullick?
Yes.
Finally, council, we have 21908, 2022. This is a resolution authorizing voluntary deduction of employee earned paid time off in lieu of monetary payment to resolve overpayment of wages in 2020 in connection with the Affordable Housing Trust Fund for COA.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments?
I just have some comments. To be honest with you, we are making progress in having this COA money paid back. I am upset with the fact that part of this payment back will be they're going to be using vacation and sick time, and with that, 5 earned vacation days and 32 sick days, which is over the city's limit of 12,000. The sick days will be around, I think, 14,000. So to be honest with you, I don't think sick time should be used to pay back a debt. I think vacation time, I understand, because it's something that you've earned. Sick time should be only used for sick time and not to pay back money that was paid inadvertently. So that's the reason why I'll be voting no on this.
Any other questions or comments?
I just wanted to make a comment that the individual is agreeing to pay back the city. If that's If that's how they feel, I can accept that.
Thank you. Okay, roll call, please.
Councilmember Baldwin?
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sheehan?
No?
Councilmember Yeager?
Yes.
Mayor Mullock?
Yes.
Okay. Any old business, council?
Any old business, council?
I have some old business. It has to do with, I just want to make sure, a while ago, we put in a resolution where committee meetings would be live streamed and the minutes put on in the minutes with the
Loaded on the
committees.
website.
Right, the website, thank you. I just want to make sure that we're advertising for these meetings, such as the library committee and will be the M-Track, I know does advertise. So I just want to make sure that we're keeping up with that and that minutes are being put on the site.
So for advisory committees, yes. Task forces, no.
And is there a reason why we're not doing task forces? Because M-Track considers a task force, and we are live streaming that and doing the minutes.
No, M-Track is an established advisory committee by city council resolution. A task force is just a different body. They function under different rules. That council has not mandated regulations for task forces. So as of right now, they can meet at will. They are not technically open public meetings, which neither are advisory committee meetings, but council has mandated it so. So as of right now, task forces are not functioning with the same rules and regulations as advisory committees.
So we're not allowing the public to come to task force meetings?
I don't know if they're not allowed, it's just not regulated.
Well, if we're not advertising, then how are people supposed to attend if they don't know that these task force are meeting? That's wanting them advertised on the flow of when minutes are put on there and the meetings.
Let me, I guess, Deputy Mayor Sheehan, the way that I see task force and committees, committee has an ongoing purpose, where a task force has a very narrow focus, and they're just looking at doing that. So it's not anything, we're just gathering information, and you specifically said the library task force. We're gathering information in order to bring it back to council. The task force makes no decisions. They're just bringing everything back to council on that one issue, and then basically the task force dissolves. Very similar to what we did with the task force for the firehouse.
Well, the firehouse was open to the public. And I mean, I used to attend them with other people, and they would have actually comments time that the public could comment on.
The task force that we set up was not open to the public.
Well, the one before was.
Yeah, we had it, and and I don't think that was a task force. What we're doing now is the task force for the firehouse is basically dissolved. They finished their mission and.
Well, as a liaison for the parking committee, which we're giving them a single task, but we're not making them, should we make them a task force then? To me, I think the public should be welcome to all meetings. I think the public can give all, I'm told.
We all
what
agree
is
with
there-
that. We all agree with that, but if I may, because Councilwoman Baldwin asked to put together a task force. She brought it to the public's attention that we want to look at what's going to happen with the library, given the fact that tonight, the new library is going to start. So I just want to say the one thing, and then I'll allow you to keep going. She brought that up to alert the public that this is happening and to solicit opinions from the public. People express interest of being on the task force, and they're on the task force. So I just don't want this like claim that, oh, this is like to be done in secret. No, the city could just decide as a council what we're going to do with the existing library. That's not what's happening. What's happening is that the Councilwoman Baldwin said to the public, would anyone like to be on the task force? We're coming up with ideas, that those ideas will be then presented to council in a public forum at city council meeting for a much larger discussion. I just want to clear the air of, oh, this is to be done in secret. It's exactly the opposite. They just want to get ideas from the public, solicit ideas to see what people can come up with, and then those ideas will be presented to council in a public meeting.
You can't solicit ideas from the public without the public not being able to attend. So I assumed that the public would be welcome at all meetings that council puts into place. And I know there's people that asked to be on the library commission.
I
and that
I
weren't
have
on.
no problem putting it on but a task force in general is, I have no problem putting it on the meetings.
Yeah,
the
I
meeting
just think,
Yeah.
to only have a few people meet when you could have some people come and go, oh, I have an idea, and they want to come and present it.
But for the most part, and that's what I was trying to clarify, the task force have a narrow focus, whereas a committee has a larger focus and an ongoing purpose.
And if I can, we passed the resolution that said all committee meetings need to be live streamed. That was this council. So I want to be clear to the public, we passed the resolution that required live stream for all city council, for all committee meetings. We required that they have an agenda and that the public, it was announced when those meetings were. That's something that this council did. I think you brought to the table a task force to come up with some ideas then to present to city council. I thought it was a nice idea. Frankly, if there's a member of council this evening that would like to see those published on the website, I don't think anybody has any problem with that. So let's do it rather than talking about it. So we'll put it on the website. You can put together an agenda, which basically the agenda is going to read, give us your ideas for the library, but that's fine.
Yeah, and then,
Well, sorry, we can just post dates to the website without having to post supplemental documents. I don't know how far council wants to go with this, but we could just post that there's a meeting happening and anybody who wants to go can go,
right.
regardless of
because
any agenda.
I think that, with the parking committee, even though they have a task, which is one narrow focus, that, we want it to be open to the public.
Okay, so we'll
So,
make sure
and
it's
I
on
was
the
actually
website.
waiting until this resolution was approved before we pulled the task force together. And by the way, everybody who applied for the task force, public members, they were all put on. So it's not like anybody's been excluded.
Good.
And we clearly are not looking at excluding the public, but there was a way that we were going to all of those ideas. Because not everybody can make those meetings, but the website.
I appreciate that you're taking that on to make sure the public is aware that that's going on. And, okay.
So can I just, is that for all task forces then? I'm just procedurally, I'm going to have to be made aware of when meetings are
Because we have-
in advance so that we have time
No,
to
the
post it
answer
to
is,
the
this one.
the
website.
answer is no, and the reason for the answer being no is some of these task force talk about sensitive issues regarding the police station, the fire station, things that doesn't have to be in public.
That's, okay,
should
so
not
for the
be
library
public.
task force, as long as Councilwoman Baldwin is comfortable with providing me with, meeting dates ahead of time, just so we can put them on then.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
Any other old business?
Any other old business, council? Okay, city clerk? Oh, I'm sorry, city solicitor, any other?
I don't have anything to add tonight, thank you.
Deputy city manager?
Nothing at this time.
Okay. City clerk? No? Okay.
No.
Councilmember Baldwin?
I just have one thing to report. I know it's been brought up in the past, the bathrooms up at where Taylor Porkwell was on the boardwalk. We received our second set of bids. Hopefully, we'll be going out for bid, out for some sort of construction bid in the fall. So that's moving along. It's been pretty grueling trying to find architects that are willing to bid on this project. I think we reported that to you a few months ago. But at this point, we have a few bids, and I'll present them.
So we have plans?
No,
No.
these are the bids for architectural
Architect plans.
services. Yes.
Great, that's
Okay?
great.
And we're just waiting right now for the mechanicals.
Okay,
Okay?
all
Once that
right.
package is together, council will receive it.
That's great. Mr. Meyer?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I just kind of hinting on it before, or mentioned it before, that the Shade Tree Commission has created a subcommittee to look into the ordinance and the application process. We had some good advice from Wayne from West Cape May, from their Shade Tree Commission, as well as members of the public and Matt Notch. And as part of this subcommittee, I'm going to bring this ordinance for the invasive species to them, just get their input.
Great.
Because I'd like to see something started.
That's great. Thank you, Councilman. Deputy Mayor?
It's funny you brought up the shade tree because I had somebody approach me about a house going up next door to them, and there's like almost a 100-year-old cedar tree there, and they were concerned that it was going to be knocked down. And I informed them, I said, when I built my house, I had to go before the shade tree, and they had to inspect my property and make sure there was no trees on the property before I started. So when I asked to see the HPC, or not HPC, I'm sorry, the shade tree form for trees for this property, there wasn't one. And it came, so then I talked with Lieu about this, and we talked with Lieu Vito. And at one time, there was a checklist that required the shade tree committee to sign off on the trees on the property and what was going to be taken down and not. And somehow it got taken off. And I think they're working to have it put back on so that we will have that on there again, so that developers can't come in and just clear the lot and take down trees that should have been standing because it weren't interfering with the house or the driveway or things like that. And so hopefully we'll be able to save this 100-year-old cedar tree, which is native.
You know, to go on with that, if I may, Deputy Mayor, there's a provision in our shade tree ordinance that we as a city council can designate specific trees in our town to never be torn down or taken down. So if there's any thoughts of like, I'm thinking maybe those big trees in Rotary Park, you know, even though the Fund for Cape May maintains that park, I feel we may have a responsibility to ensure that, you know, these magnificent trees are only maintained and not taken down. And just other thoughts around town if you have any.
That's great.
Because we had that tree, you know, that was, you know, was that 5 years ago that was taken down, but that was a previous approved application, but it's sometimes sad to see a big tree go down.
Absolutely. That's great. Councilman Yeager?
Nothing new.
All right. I just want to, again, thank the state for the $75,000 that we got for the charging stations. Also announce that the HPC last night did approve the Kiwanis Club Park project, which I think is just really exciting. I want to thank, again, the task force that worked on the Kiwanis Club Park. And again, the state for the $400,000 small cities grant that we received. We also received a grant on the water department, $600,000. Actually, I'm sorry, we haven't received it yet, but we're included in the congressionally directed spending applications in regards to engineering for the desal plant. So hopefully that goes through. It should, but we're excited about that. And I don't think we're actually powered by them yet, but we do have solar panels physically installed on City Hall that they just finished on Friday. So pretty neat to know we'll be powering our city council meetings with, well, until it gets too late, solar energy.
Bright lights that we figured out how to turn
It'll be
on.
more motivation to get to the end of our meetings, which I would like to open it up now for.
Before that,
Oh,
just
please.
a quick question. I guess at the next meeting, are we going to approve the Kiwanis Park plans, or how, you know, when are we going to approve them? When does council have to approve the plans for the Kiwanis Park?
What do you mean by
I
approve
mean,
them?
as a
We-
council person,
well,
I
we
haven't
had-
seen those plans yet. I didn't know when we were going to approve them.
We had the presentation at the last
Last
meeting.
council
Oh, I'm sorry.
The Kiwanis Club, you know.
Yeah, we came to council before we went to
before
HPC,
HPC.
so that, you know, we didn't want to go to HPC first and then
Okay.
come to council
So
and
they were
find out.
approved at the last meeting?
Yeah,
Okay.
they're upstairs.
Right over there.
Okay, with that, we can open it up for public comment.
Yes. Anybody wishing to make any public comment, please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Anyone for public comment? Susan?
Susan Bryant, 5730 Cedar Avenue, Pennsauken. Two things. Stacy, you mentioned return on investment on the library. It's true, we do pay a lot to the county library in taxes, about $1.2 million a year. In our present building on Ocean Street, which is 4,400 square feet, we get about a $600,000 return on the investment because it's too small. You can't staff it, you can't do a lot of operations in that building. When we move to the Franklin Street School, we'll go up to at least 900,000. Will be a 16,000 square foot building, but the beauty of being with the county library system is they have many people on staff. We'll have a demonstration kitchen in the basement. People will come down from the county on certain days and work with senior citizens, kids, whoever wants to learn how to cook. The same with computers. People will come down from the county and do individual sessions with people. You want to come in and learn how to use your device. We just don't have the staff to do it now in this little building. So if we project we're going to 900,000 in the first year, we're gonna hit what our investment is with the county. So that's a really good thing, just through staffing with a big system. The other thing is bamboo. We were the people on Jefferson Street that 505 Jefferson, my Aunt Helen Trout planted bamboo in 1957 on her house on Sewell Avenue because she thought it was cute. That bamboo spread all over Jefferson Street. Now that house on Sewell that Helen and Walter Trout owned, somebody removed the bamboo. And anyway, I got a citation. My sister and I, we owned the house. We got a citation from the city in November. Merry Christmas. Here's your citation. Get this bamboo out of here in 30 days. So, of course, we couldn't do it in 30 days. But I want to make the point, we couldn't even get contractors who would do the work. I finally got somebody to do it, and I approached all the other neighbors because, as you point out, Mr. Yeager, it's very invasive. It came over from Sewell, and it came into all these yards. And another neighbor kind of ratted us out. It was on our list, but it's so expensive. And this is your point, Stacy. I wish he had just come and said, get rid of this. We were working on it, but we're not. Cape May has gotten rich, but we were not rich. We ended up paying like $8,000 to get this bamboo. It took 6 months, and I rented the house at that point. He just finished from January to June. My renters were coming in the last week of June. He just finished the day before. I mean, you cannot get people to do this work. And as Mr. Gillen Schwartz pointed out, we had to get a barrier that came from Pennsylvania. The whole yard was excavated, and then it got muddy and cold, and it stopped for the winter. You better be careful what you ask for, especially city workers, because no, you'll be sued. This is dicey. So. And we wanted to do the right thing, but it's hard. And I did approach 3 other neighbors, and they didn't do anything. So we sold the house. The guy knew, the barrier was there. But it's liable to come back on some of those other yards.
Well, I think the solicitor's point, too, going back in history, I don't think we're going to get often members of the public coming to the meeting saying, my aunt planted these in 1956.
Yeah, she didn't know. She thought it was cute, like a lot of people. But she died in 1968, and I mean, this took over the whole neighborhood. And my mother was not well enough to get it removed. And then we did, but it was very expensive. It wasn't cheap, and there were not a lot of people standing in line to do it. It's very, that barrier had to come, and then, it went on and on and on. So I think, Stacy, you had the right idea, like, don't let anybody plant it, but it's all over town. I walk around and I'm like, well, these people still have bamboo. I would not rat them out, but, but it's a bad problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else from the public? Please.
Patricia Gray Hendricks, 106 Trenton Avenue, only because the council members in comments and discussions and questions brought up about task force, and the mayor pointed out that we have a resolution in place which specifically says that all advisory meetings will be live streamed, agendas, the minutes, etc. There seems to be one problem that's occurring, and I'd like to get some clarification, and that is that there is oftentimes, as hard as this staff works and as taxed as this staff is to be drawn into an advisory committee meeting, to turn on live stream, because volunteers are volunteers, it's not their job. But so far, it's getting to be somebody else's job, and somebody else's job or who they could grab. I'm sure Mr. Blasio, I'm sure that all of the clerks would say that's true, or anybody that walks by the hall, it's fair game. Karen comes out, whatever. Here's the problem. If live stream is not engaged at the time of the meetings, you cannot view it. The public expects for those meetings to be loaded up onto your no longer live stream, but YouTube. So the question is, if it's on that machine, how does it get to YouTube? Because it's not getting onto YouTube, it's not getting onto public access. So what is the solution for having those meetings available to the public after the meetings? Because it's happening over and over again. It's not any one person in this room's issue, problem, fault, but it needs to have an answer. It needs to have a resolution to the problem,
I'm glad
if
you're on-
your resolution is going to be effective.
I think I've seen a lot of M-Track meetings on YouTube, so maybe I'm missing something that they have.
I didn't pick out YouTube, I didn't pick out M-Track. I'm saying advisory committees. There are, if you were to track advisory committees that are missing from their meetings, they don't have, they're on the agenda, but they aren't on live stream. M-Track just last week
Yeah,
did not make it.
Okay, I see a ton of M-Track meetings on there. I'm not sure what meetings you're referring to, but I do appreciate that you do now support having them on video, because you didn't when we had a resolution when you were here, and you voted no to having them on live stream, but I am glad that you do support it now.
No, I'm asking about the resolution. I'm not asking about support or not support. At this point, I was just questioning how they can be uploaded from that computer onto our system. Do we have an IT person?
We do. We can get an answer to you from our IT person.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. As far as I know, they're being uploaded as the meetings occur. M-Track hadn't met for a couple weeks, so,
They haven't been meeting.
yeah, so I'm not sure what meetings you're referring to that haven't been uploaded.
There's a lot of meetings, if you were to go access and take a look in inventory, you'd see, but only Amtrak, and Amtrak was just the last one from last week, was not, am I correct?
I personally don't know if the Amtrak live streamed or not. I know that oftentimes committees and even commissions struggle with working the live stream. And we try our best to help out when we're here. Sometimes we're not always here, so it's one of those, if it works, it works. If it doesn't,
Thank you for being honest.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Mr. Roush?
Jules Roush, 1010 New York Avenue. Just a little different approach to this landscaping selection and non-selection. Rather than just have a list of what you cannot plant, why don't we come up with a list of what we think is good for the city and recommend and hand that out to the people that come into the city and say, you know, these are the plants we know do well. These are the ones that have color that match the historic value of the city. Crepe myrtles are probably one of the greatest trees that are indicative of a representative of the city.
Can I answer that?
Yeah.
I think the Environmental Commission has. I've actually asked for that list to put on the city website under the Environmental Commission. I don't know if we've done that yet, but that was only 2 weeks ago or so. But they have provided the city with a nice list of native plants, as you said, that do well, are drought tolerant, and also beautiful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Come up to the microphone if you would.
you very much. I appreciate the question and the answer. So that a number of years ago, New Jersey Audubon, and I wish I'd brought the list tonight.
And I think everyone knows who you are in the
Oh,
room,
excuse
Charlotte,
me.
but
Okay, so I'm Charlotte Todd, and I'm at 1308 Cape May Avenue, and I am an Environmental Commission appointee. So that a number of years ago, it has to be at least 25 years ago, the Planning Board invited the Environmental Commission to come forward through New Jersey Audubon. And New Jersey Audubon gave us the plant, do not plant list. And that is supposedly going to anybody who comes before the planning board with a new property be developed. But one of the things I'd like to say is that, and Mike is going to help us with this because at the last meeting, he agreed that he would go with an environmental commission person to the zoning board, to the HPC, and to remind again the planning board that this is the list. And Gretchen went over it again at our meeting. So
that's great.
Gretchen Whitman, excuse me, New Jersey Audubon
That's awesome.
representative. So that's the answer. Thank you.
Charlotte, you've done a wonderful job for the city for many, many years, and we thank you. And I also add, I won't say how long, but I will also add, recently being on the planning board, I know Deputy Mayor would agree, all the applications that we've been getting that include landscape have recommendations directly on the planning board application for native plants and even some suggestions, which I think is wonderful. I think that's great. So great work, Charlotte. Thank you. Any other public comment? Chief?
I know it's late. I just got to follow up and circle back to the speeding matter in discussion. A lot of emphasis comes back on my department as far as enforcement. I'd like to answer some of those questions and see what direction we can go in. We are 23, 24 man department, woman department. We do our best. I routinely put out the monthly statistics to the clerk's office. They're very clear, but maybe they're a little unclear as what we do per day. A lot of things need to go into this discussion, and I was in the meetings, and I echo everything that Mr. Blasio said, Mr. Yeager, and everyone that was at the meeting for speed. We're addressing a concern that is long overdue, that has been, again, like the mayor has said, this town wasn't built for everything that's here now. We just have to adapt to it. I find sometimes pleasure, avoiding the turtles going into Stone Harbor, but that calming measure that you go in there, I think there's going to be some money that needs to be spent on the inbound on all of this island, as I call it, entrances, specifically coming into town. You need to slow them down before they get in here and then kind of jar them to attention to, hey, read the street. And I agree with Shane or Councilman Myers' advice as far as painting the ground. It's not going to hurt anything. There's already painted lines there. I think that huge 25 mile an hour to a 10 around Sydney does draw your attention, and it should slow you down.
And now the LED sign that's
now the
right
LED
there on the
signs.
island.
So traffic calming measures have been long discussed. I'm not talking about the bump outs. I'm talking about the bump ups and the rise. West Cape May should also entertain that as well. As you get further down in Lower Township, same thing with Cape May Point. The 20 versus the 25 mile an hour zone or time or mile per hour limit, it's been proven, like Mr. Yeager said, it reduces fatalities along the way, from LSVs to bicyclists to pedestrians to motor vehicles. If you are struck by a vehicle going 30 miles an hour, which is the speed limit on most streets, I think it rises 40%, if I'm correct with the graphic that was put in to the request to the county. And again, respectfully to the county, they need to understand where we are and what we need in our location. And just like Mr. Blasio said, the speed determines how things are dictated. So data confirms the 20-25 miles an hour. I have received complaints more on the people who drive too fast in the city of Cape May, West Cape May, Cape May Point. I have recently received some complaints that slowing the speed down that will slow their travel to Texas Avenue, will slow their travel to the mall. My answer to that is slow down and smell the salt air, okay, because that's where we are now, because I cannot keep up with the traffic accidents. And as far as enforcement's concerned, I got to point back to the statistics just for July, wherein we have a very busy month, 1,800 per se calls per month. Of that, 200 or 197 car stops. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it's, again, not more than 3. It's 6.5 car stops a day. On top of, okay, the traffic summonses, the 6 DUIs we had in this month as well, 38 days, so that's 6 DUIs, okay, 4 of which were in Cape May, 2 of which were in West Cape May. Traffic enforcement radar, we run radar every single day. I have these gentlemen and ladies running radar every day. There's 38 radar attempts that are written down here. When we receive a complaint from New Jersey Avenue residents, Leamy Avenue residents, I'll say his name, Mr. Trombino on Lafayette Street, we are in constant conversation, and I have called New Jersey Transit about the buses. He's absolutely correct. You have a huge piece of equipment coming down the street there. They've tried to slow the buses down. Traffic needs to be slowing down. People sitting on their porches really look at it and say, oh my God, that car's going 40 miles an hour. The traffic studies that I've put out there that Lieutenant Walker has done for this department are not saying that. Yes, I do say that vehicles are speeding, but when we're out there sitting there or we're running a radar enforcement detail, which we can show you the records and the proof of from Lafayette Street all the way to New Jersey Avenue into West Cape May, where you're getting 26, 27, and you're getting 2 or 3 tickets written, usually just for infractions of the vehicle. So I'm not saying that vehicles aren't speeding. I'm just saying that when you're sitting on your porch looking outward, you feel that way. Now throw into that an LSV that's going no more than 25. They can't go more than 20. I've had people call me and say, these LSVs are speeding all over town. They can't go any more than 25 unless you got some jacked up machine that I'm unaware of. They can't. They're governed. So that's one of the things. Like you said, Mayor, we're in a town that was built for horse and buggy with very narrow streets. I can't run radar on Hughes Street because it's going one way. You know what I mean? On certain other streets that are one way, I can't run radar. So with that, I also can't enforce quotas. I can't ask my officers to write me 15 tickets per day or jack up the number of tickets they write. They have to be selective in their enforcement as far as, if that sergeant's going to run a tac pack during the day and he's going to sit and run radar at one end of town and let the car go by thinking they got away with it, but then stop them at the other end, that's what we do.
And can I add just one thing to that, Chief? Because I didn't know this. Parking tickets, the city makes money on.
100%. So they also speeding tickets, they get a percentage of that money.
But the speeding tickets, when you add in the labor and everything else, we're not getting money on speeding tickets.
And you shouldn't.
It's enforcement.
Yeah,
I just want people to know that we're not giving out speeding tickets to raise money.
I would be remiss to do so. That's definitely not why we do it. I mean, the 6 DUIs we've had, we're Cape May, so that seems the 4 that Cape May had, per se. It doesn't seem like a lot, but it's a lot. And that takes 2 or 3 officers off the road at that time. So we are gradually getting our numbers up. I am very, very short this summer. It's not at fault of council. You guys have been very, very, supportive of my efforts to build this department. I couldn't get the 12 other Class 2s out this summer because they weren't, nobody wants to be a cop. This is pretty straight.
It sounds like when you guys are out there.
Yes, ma'am.
That it actually slows the traffic down, because you said, when you're out there sitting there, you're not getting the speeders. So that's good to know that at least when they see you, they're slowing down. But I want to make a comment that the people that are telling me that there's speeders on Lafayette Street were doing it because there was a speeding sign that tells the people how fast they were going. So it's not just they're visually thinking people are speeding, they're actually being recorded by the sign. So I just want to make that point.
Yeah, and listen,
People
like I
aren't
said, I
just
definitely think people do speed at times when they don't see the police officer there. I have sent several requests, the mayor can attest to it, to Public Works. Eric Brzezinski's been very helpful with Rusty and his staff to try to find the money to add more digital speed signs. He's like, that visual blinking of you're going too fast will trigger that, and that's been proven through studies. So, like I said, we've met with the rental agencies for LSVs, for the bicyclists. We have our positive helmet campaign that the mayor had us kick off a few years ago. So we're trying to do everything we can. I have to defend my officers when it's like, well, enforcement, because we're doing what we can do within the day that we have. If you read my monthly, 60 DUIs is one thing, but then the 55 medical, or this 97 medical assist, and the 55 assist to the fire department, the 83 assist to the citizens. That's our job, so we can't be everywhere every time. I do need your help with getting calming measures into the city and around town. Mr. Yeager and the staff that were tasked with lowering the speed or asking for that request, we need to stay on that topic, stay on the county to do that. Other areas of West Cape May are already at 20. The mall, I agree with dropping to at least 20, the 25 around town. We need to start somewhere because, the 2 fatalities that we've had in West Cape May and the one here, they weren't speed related. Okay, so you got to understand when people say, oh yeah, well these deaths, they weren't speed related. The New Jersey Transit accident on Broadway, she hit another bike and she fell over into the roadway and was struck, unfortunately. This last accident on Lafayette Street, same thing. It was a vehicle driven by someone that was not well. The last one we had near Pittsburgh Avenue, someone ran a stop sign, not speeding in that area. But like you said, Village Green, people do fly down there. It's going to take you a couple extra seconds to get to your location. Slow down and smell the salt air. That's all I ask.
Thank you, Chief.
Yes,
And I think we all compliment the hard work of the police department, but also, to be blunt, your willingness to work with our bicycle and pedestrian committee and coming up with these solutions, and have been so supportive in finding real solutions, which, obviously enforcement's one branch, but another branch is coming up with good solutions, because you guys can't be everywhere all the time.
That's right, and they've actually, Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, Terry and Dr. Vasir and all them, they're all on me. We have multiple emails going back and forth. She doesn't want me to target so much, or they don't want me to target so much just these cars. It's stop the bicyclists for going down Carpenter's Lane the wrong way. Stop them from speeding and going into traffic, because they're part of the problem. The LSVs are another part of it. So that's what we've been tasked with. They've set us up with a group, and Mr. Yeager can attest to that, I forget his name is Mike, or it's, it'll come to us in a minute. Anyway, he's
The
with.
gentleman coming down, yeah.
Yeah, he's going to come down and doing a bike safety class for us in
cool.
September and help us out there. So, all hands are working at this target, and we're trying to do our best there. So we just got to continue that.
And if I can say too, people tend to email the mayor.
Oh, they do.
So I will get a decent amount of complaints. When I email them to you, they're responded to immediately. And I see action taken very quickly in regards to the speed signs and all kinds of, so I appreciate it.
Absolutely, appreciate it.
All right, any other public comment? Ma'am?
Patricia Turnovy, 719, 721 Franklin.
Good evening.
Good evening. I just want to talk about the construction. You just talked about the library that's going to be starting on, that you said you would always keep me in the loop. Well, you know what? You haven't. I have the library that's going to be going on that you must know about, or maybe have some start date in the near future. I have the fire hall.
Can I just answer that? Because I want to give you an honest answer. We don't know the start date of the library, and I assure you, I know our deputy city manager has reached out to you on a couple other occasions, but
He reached out to me in the very beginning when I asked you, when I made a public comment before, but he hasn't reached out to me recently. And anything?
Go ahead. I apologize for, all I wanted to say is there isn't a date for the
Okay,
library yet.
but it is in the works.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so I hope I'm going to be called into the loop for that, okay?
100.
So I have, what loop?
Yes, 100% you will, yes.
Okay. So I have the firehouse that's going on, which, you extended the hours of operation. They come at 7 o'clock in the morning, and they're done at 3. So I know it's not near your house, but 7 o'clock in the morning with big trucks and the pounding of the cement and the church. You said that was going to begin in September. Now, that was last year. You said we're going to begin in September of last year, and it's going to be ongoing. Well, I thought it was going to be like during the fall and the winter. It still's not finished. So now I have the church, and I have the firehouse. I'm one person. I know I'm one person, and you told me, well, I'm not the only person on that block. You said you have the people in back of me, but I'm the buffer. Believe me, I'm the buffer, and the bank, and Macedonia, maybe? Okay? So every Saturday, I have to wipe off this dirt from my chairs that is coming from the construction. Now, I don't mind that. I realize it's for the good. I'm not here to say, this is what's going on in my property. I'm not one of those people. But I just wanted you to keep me in the loop. Now, next door to me is CCA. I'm very concerned about what's going on with that, because I know that's not going to be a permanent structure there, and maybe you have something in your head that you're thinking about that particular structure, because I know property in Cape May is at a premium, and I honestly, just like you said, people email you. I didn't email you. Honestly, I was going to go over and make an appointment to see you, because I said, you know, I'm the one that's on that street. And like I said, I love everything that's going on. I am not against it. But I am the only one on that street. And I just can't believe that you've not reached out to me.
I got to tell you, we've had multiple meetings with the contractor. Actually, today I got our 20th meeting minutes, and I have to say that the deputy mayor, or deputy city manager, Lieu Blasio, has mentioned specifically your property, I would say at 10 of those 20 meetings, to make sure that the contractor was keeping you in the loop.
No one has kept me abreast of anything.
So that,
no one.
That's news to me. I just
Okay,
want
well,
you to know that.
and it's news to me that you're saying that he did. So I'm telling you, he did email me in the very beginning when I came to you for the meeting, or maybe I think it was during COVID when I called in. Now, I do watch your meetings through live stream. I'm sorry that I don't make everyone. I like to make everyone, but I don't, because half of my property is rented. And I'm very lucky that nobody has said anything, but I have been in there like in early June, and they broke up that ramp that goes to the AME church, and you cannot believe the noise. It was like a bomb. It was incredible. I mean, you must have heard it on where you live. But I'm thinking to myself, I really thought, honestly, that you would have reached out to me and said, you know what, or just walked over, because they've seen you a couple times, like over there by the firehouse, and just, you know, oh, I want to come over and just talk to you about a few things. I really want to know what's going on in the street, not only with when's the AME church going to be completed, what's going to be going on with CCA, and when the completion of the firehouse is going to be, and now we have the public library. And I'm across the street. I'm the greenhouse, if anybody wants to know who I am.
We know your house, and you do a very nice
And
job
yes,
with
and,
it.
and did a very, yes, it took 4 years to renovate. And I have cracks in my ceilings, or cracks in my walls on the front room from it. But again, you know, it's all in progress. But like I said, I just wanted somebody from this administration to reach out to me, one person, just somebody.
Well, I'm going to have our deputy city manager reach out to you tomorrow, and we will schedule a meeting with the contractor ASAP.
I really appreciate that. I really do.
And I will again reiterate with them moving forward, but the only thing I would ask, if you do not hear from the contractor, please contact me. I'll make sure that the contractor is in contact with you on each project to make sure your concerns are heard.
I really appreciate it, because like I said, I'm very hurt by this administration. I really thought that, you know, you would really come together and let me know, just like I thought you said to me originally.
I truly thought you were being in the loop, so obviously you're telling me you're not.
No.
We're going to correct that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right.
I just have a quick question. Are those workers allowed to start at 7 a.m.? I thought they weren't.
Yes.
I thought that was extended in the back and not in the front end. And I thought they were just for the weekends.
No. Yeah.
Okay, so they're allowed to be there at 7.
Yes.
Okay, any other public comment? Okay, seeing none, motion to adjourn?
Okay.
All right. Time is 15 to 9 o'clock. Have a wonderful evening, everyone. Thank you.